Welcome, everyone. This is our first in-person meeting for quite a long time. We do have also virtual attendees that will be able to participate too. So far, the technology seemed to work, so the hybrid model, this is all new to us, so hopefully it'll continue to work for us so we can have a productive meeting. So we will now proceed with a regular session meeting. All right.
I recommend that the minutes pertaining to collective bargaining, administrative assistance contract changes remain sealed.
So moved.
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second to recommend that minutes pertaining to collective bargaining remain, administrative assistance contract changes remain sealed. Any discussion on that matter? Take it to a vote. Those in favor? Okay, that looks like that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Number 2.
I recommend that minutes pertaining to collective bargaining, NEA Chartwells certified staff contract negotiations remain sealed until such time as an agreement has been reached.
So moved.
Thank you, Catherine. There's been a motion and a second to have the minutes pertaining to collective bargaining remain sealed until such time an agreement has been reached. Any discussion on those? All those in favor? Yes.
Should we be recusing now or just abstain for the time being?
You mean because you and I would definitely recuse yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, because you recused yourself.
Mhm.
Is that okay? Great.
I wasn't in there. So.
Right, exactly. So that's number. Okay, so I'm taking to a vote. Those in favor? Okay. Opposed? Recusal? And abstentions? Because we had 2 recusals, Donna. Thank you. Number 3.
I recommend that minutes pertaining to pending litigation, Charahoe Regional School District versus State of Rhode Island, Rhode Island Department of Education, Rhode Island Department of Administration, Rhode Island Council on Elementary and Secondary Education, Commissioner of Education Kenneth Wagner, Narragansett School Committee, South Kingstown School Committee, and Westwood School Committee remain sealed.
So moved. Second.
There's been a motion and a second to recommend the minutes pertaining to pending litigation, Charahoe Regional School District versus the State of Rhode Island through Rhode Island Department of Education, Rhode Island Department of Administration, Rhode Island Council on Elementary and Secondary Education, Commissioner of Education Kenneth Wagner, Narragansett School Committee, South Kingston School Committee, and Wesley School Committee remain sealed. Any discussion on those minutes? No, take it to a vote. Those in favor? Okay, that looks like that's unanimous. Thank you very much. I'm not seeing the other ladies. I just realized Lisa and Linda.
I see Linda was up there.
Okay. Okay. Did someone note about
I
the,
will look at
thank
that.
you
Yep.
very much, Catherine. Number 4,
I recommend that minutes pertaining to potential litigation remain sealed.
So moved. Second.
okay, there was a recommendation by Ms. Luzana, second by Catherine, that the minutes pertaining to potential litigation remain sealed. Any discussion on this matter? Those in favor? Thank you. That was unanimous. Thank you very much. Number 5. Number 5, thank you. I recommend that the minutes pertaining to the job performance, character, or physical or mental health of a person, which is the discussion of superintendent's contract, remain sealed.
So moved. Second.
There was a motion and a second. The minutes pertaining to the job performance, character, physical, or mental health of a person remain sealed. Any discussion on that matter on these minutes? No, I'll take it to a vote. Those in favor? Any opposed? Recusals, abstentions? Thank you very much. Number 6.
I recommend that minutes which relate to the privacy of students and their records, approval of home instruction requests remain sealed.
So moved. Second.
There was a motion and a second to recommend that minutes which relate to the privacy of students and their records, approval of home instruction requests remain sealed. Any discussion on those minutes? No, I'll take it to a vote. Those in favor? Any opposed? Recusals or abstentions? That was unanimous. Thank you very much. Ms. Juicy, disclosure executive session votes, please.
Thank you. We had 7 votes in executive session. The first was a union negotiation update. Those in favor: Callahan, Chambers, Juicy, Lagori, Macaruso, virtually, McAllister, virtually, and Stahl. The next vote was executive session minutes, May 25th, pending litigation. Those in favor: Callahan, Chambers, Day, Lagori, Luzon, Lyall, Macaruso virtually, McAllister virtually, 2 abstained, Juicy and Stahl. The next vote was executive session minutes, May 25th, pending litigation. Those in favor, Callahan, Chambers, Day, Lagori, Luzon, Lyle, Macaruso virtually, McAllister virtually, 2 abstentions, Juicy and Stahl. The next vote was executive session minutes, May 25th, superintendent's contract. Those in favor, Callahan, Chambers, Day, Lagori, Luzon, Lyle, Macaruso virtually, McAllister virtually, 2 abstentions, Juicy and Stahl. The next vote, executive session minutes, May 25th, homeschool and requests. In favor, Callahan, Chambers, Day, Lagori, Luzon, Lyle, Macaruso virtually, McAllister virtually, abstaining, Juicy and Stahl. Tonight's homeschool requests, those in favor, Callahan, Chambers, Day, Juicy, Lagori, Luzon, Lyle, Macaruso virtually, McAllister virtually, and Stahl. And finally, to return to open session, those in favor, Callahan, Chambers, Day, Juicy, Lagori, Luzon, Lyle, Macaruso virtually, McAllister virtually, and Stahl.
Thank you, Ms. Juicy.
Excuse me, Madam Chair,
Yes.
can I ask you to ask the members of the audience to please put on masks or wear them properly? There are some members in the audience that don't have a mask on and many who are not wearing them properly.
There's been a request by Donna Chambers, school committee, if you would please put your mask on. We're mandated to have them on inside the school building.
You know, we
Why
cannot,
do we have police officers here?
yeah, police officer, please.
If you guys should just put them over your nose, it would be appreciated. It's a state mandate. Thank you.
Yes.
I would assume that was a request made by the state, not a law.
Well,
It was per executive order by the governor's office. We forwarded to Chief Johnson.
you're in a school building.
Donna, it's okay. Let's just let you work. Please.
I stand up for what I believe in.
Okay.
If anyone else does here, I'll
Right,
suggest that
we
you
do.
follow my example.
You
You'd
wanna
be
explain
arrested
why
for
you
not wearing a
tried to
mask,
work?
and I would assume that it's for what it is. That's something that I'm willing to do. I would assume that anyone else here. believe in what they believe in.
Thank you very much.
Honestly, it's ridiculous.
Point of order.
Excuse me.
everybody.
No, we,
You want to be
We-
respectful.
no. Ma'am, you need to be respectful.
You're gonna have somebody arrested.
We didn't have someone arrested.
Come on. Come on.
Can we
You're
just-
literally
Point
gonna
of
have
order,
somebody
Chair.
arrested.
We're gonna now.
Ma'am, please.
So, Matt,
please.
you're gonna have someone arrested. that
Chair, I
has
call
children in
5-minute
this
recess.
district.
5 minutes.
You're gonna have
5-minute
somebody arrested.
recess. Those in
Those in
favor?
Those in favor? Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you.
okay.
Unbelievable.
Hey, Linda, can you hear me? You have to unmute. Hey, Craig, what is the I don't know if we're on mic or not.
I think we're on mic. I think
Craig,
they can all-
Catherine, Linda, anybody? Can someone
I'm
just let
here.
us know? No, I know you, Linda, but I don't understand the
Oh, Linda
protocol. Like,
Lyle.
are we hot mic'd? Are we off?
No, you're hot. I believe you're hot mic'd because I can hear you.
Yeah, but so
Oh.
I'm calling Craig Luzon, Donna Chambers, like I'm saying their names. They're not even looking.
I don't know.
There's still arguments going on. Now Reverend Stahl's over there. Joe Reddish is calling me.
Mm.
Yes, Linda, I just got noticed that we are, when we unmute, we are live.
Okay, thanks.
I'm going to use this recess to actually go get a drink of water and come back because I think it's going to be a long evening.
I do too.
Okay,
Good
I'll be
idea.
back. Thank you, John.
John, you should get some cough medicine.
Thank you. I try to turn it off when I cough.
That's why I'm not in tonight.
I think you're very wise, Linda.
And just so you guys know, I have things muted right now because it's kind of a lot going on. So.
Sean, is it possible for you to unmic so that we can be aware of what's happening in the space?
I just don't want it all to be recorded.
I see. Okay.
I could during a 5-minute recess, so I muted during the recess.
Okay, thank you.
I would,
Ryan, I didn't notice either. Isn't that crazy?
don't have-
None of us are-
Got sound back on.
It's easier to speak out against. Easier to speak out against. And we just got pulled out of the car. Yep, nice job, guys.
I would really like to try to bring this meeting back into session. Try to be respectful to each other. Please.
As respectful as you have been to the audience.
Thank you,
members,
ma'am.
Right?
Um,
Donna,
Okay.
right, Donna? As respectful as you've been to the
I'm
audience.
not- you're listening to
I'm the
clerk.
Yeah,
I'm the clerk.
Please.
Christine, she's the clerk.
Leave me out of it.
Was it the actual officer?
Leave me out of it. Leave me out of it. It was not me.
Use that after?
No, I
Point
did
of
not.
order.
Please stop having
Stop
conversations with,
attacking me.
I'm not attacking you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not attacking anybody.
Ryan.
Insinuating.
Unbelievable.
Or should we just do recognition? Trav? Okay, let's do recognition.
I am proud to recognize the following students with postseason awards. High school girls track, Margaret Whedon, all division first team high jump, all class third team high jump. Erin Van Huzen, all class second team, 3,000 meter, all class second team, 4x800 relay, and freshman state champion, 3,000 meter. Brooke Canizet, all class second team, 4x800 relay. Grace Gillette, all class second team, 4x800 relay. Anna LaCroix, all class second team, 4x800 relay. Abby Cole, all class third team, 3,000 meter, and academic all state. Paige Grissom, academic all state. Rico Thompson, freshman state champion shot put and freshman state champion discus. High school gymnastics, Paige Swenson, Heisman Scholarship. And high school ice hockey, Caden Wilson. I would also like to congratulate the following senior for the award ceremony. Senior Sportsmanship Award, Paige Grissom and Christian Fortune. Senior Athlete of the Year, Abby Cole, Spencer Shields, James Daughtry, and Sullivan Cummins. And Senior Scholar Athlete of the Year, Spencer Shields and Nathan Berry. Charahoe class of 2021, along with the valedictorian, Paige Grissom, and salutatorian, Faith Ells. I'd also like to congratulate our 2020-2021 retirees. Catherine Peters with 29 years, Jeffrey Dominguez with 31 years, Maria Cook with 29 years, Sally Ann Andriozzi with 24 years, and Thomas Brousseau with 20 years. We wish them well as they end their career with their retirement. I'd also like to recognize Assistant Superintendent Jane Daly and thank her for her 7 years of service to the Charahoe District, wishing her all the best in her new position. Jane has been an amazing partner and is always will be an asset to our team and the Charahoe family.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would like to read a statement because I don't want to miss any word of this, Jane. Jane Daly came to Charahoe 7 years ago, just as the district had instituted its one-to-one program. Realizing that there was a need to have intense professional development for all staff to integrate technology into the instruction, Jane immediately led the charge. With some staff resistance at first, she quickly got our teachers' buy-in. This led to a very strong, successful, and cooperative professional development support system that guided Charahoe in becoming a model for other districts. When the pandemic came along, Charahoe was ready and moved smoothly into an integrated distance learning system. Thank you, Jane, for that. Jane's unassuming and competent leadership was evident in helping Charahoe weather the storm through Barry Ritchie's absences. She has made this district a better place, and Wachusett, Massachusetts is extremely lucky to inherit her skills and dedication. Thank you, Jane, for all you did for Charahoe in your 7 years here. I wish you good luck, and we'll miss you. Thank you. Thank you.
I would also like to recognize Scott Merritt for his 30 years of coaching wrestling. The best wishes on his retirement from Charahoe. He will be greatly missed.
Oh, even though-
Oh,
Is she here?
I don't think so. I'd also like to welcome to the district our new assistant principal, Jean Bredanini. She is our new Charahoe High School assistant principal and is meeting the staff on Wednesday, and they had set out communications to all the families and community members of the high school.
Good.
Welcome, Jean. I don't think Jean is with us.
Jean's not here. Okay, well, thank you. Welcome, Jean. Okay, we're on to public forum. This is the opportunity for the public to discuss or raise items that are not on the agenda at this time tonight. We are going to take the in-person, if there's somebody in person who wants to speak first, we will allow those people to speak first. If there are people virtually attending, if you'd like to participate in the public forum, we have people monitoring that. So we'll get you the opportunity to speak as soon as we do the in-person. Please keep your comments short to 2 minutes. We do have a lot of people here today. We want to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to speak. So please state your business and be very concise, and we would appreciate that. So at this time, is there anyone who has something they'd like to say? Back of the room, sir? Could you?
You can go to the microphone.
You can go to the
please.
microphone. Thank you. Could you state your name and
How you doing? My name is Chartwells. I have 2 children in the Chartwells School District.
Mhm.
I would like to start by saying that racism from any perspective is wrong. CRT is presented as a discipline that seeks social justice, but inherently creates divide and teaches some children to be guilty for being born with a certain skin tone. I believe as parents, we all want equal opportunities for our children. So I must ask, at this point, can you tell me that Charahoe does not provide equal opportunity to children regardless of race, ethnicity, or really anything at all? Have there been any documented incidents to support the need for CRT in our schools? And if so, how many? Charahoe should have a zero tolerance policy for any type of racism displayed. I, as a parent, do not agree with CRT being taught in our schools. Children do not see each other in that way. My 6-year-old daughter tells me about her friends. She tells me that they're smart, funny, kind, make her laugh, are simply fun to play with. Never once mentioned color of their skin. By introducing CRT, you are influencing guilt where there should be none, and changing our children's perspective to look at color when they should be seeking only character. Aside from CRT, I also believe any political notions should be left out of schools, and topics like gender identity, religion, and sexuality should not be subjects for school, but rather taught at home. Offering clinical resources and support to children who may need them in the counselor's office is one thing for children seeking advice or information, but they should not be part of the core curriculum. This should also include the summer reading list. Many of these books are simply inappropriate. Let's get back to the core basics of studies and some simple, non-controversial electives.
I think you to answer that, if critical race theory is coming to Charahoe, he did ask me first.
Mr. Algiers, thank you for your comments. Thank you. At this time, the school committee, with me, if anyone chooses to comment, they can, but yes, go ahead.
So Chair, and I understand the question. So in public forum, since it's not a published topic, the school committee doesn't engage in active debate. So from the standpoint of asking us questions as whether or not we're introducing something like that, it would take place publicly in terms of under our section of business, not responded to with
There was a
respect to
link
public
on
forum.
the Charahoe website though that talked about it that was actually taken down.
No, they just moved it.
Oh, sorry.
Excuse me, if you
Yeah.
want to speak, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to ask you to take your 2 minutes at the microphone.
Yeah, thank you.
And if you could all state the town that you live in and your name, I would appreciate that too.
I live in Richmond. I grew up here. I graduated from Charahoe, so did my wife,
So
so
what's
did
your
my
name?
5 kids. My name's Fred Morris.
Nice to meet you. Please state your.
I'm here for the same reason. Matter of fact, everything that he said, I agree with 100%.
Mhm.
My kids come here to learn math, science, social studies, language arts. I have 5 kids. One of them just turned 18. I did pretty good. I'll raise my kids. I don't need any of you or their teachers to raise them. I asked all of you earlier if any of you have children. I didn't get an answer. I'd really love to know how many do. Please.
I got 4.
Great.
I got grandkids. You want to know how many?
I don't need to know how many. No, I want to know. So it's less than half of you.
No. Oh.
About half of you.
No, what?
Okay.
Continue, sir.
Your
So-
point.
Yes.
We are all here, I would imagine, for the same reason, and we just found out about this a couple days ago. I will do whatever it takes to not allow this critical race theory, whatever it takes. I lived in the city. I came back here to get my kids in the school that I grew up in because I know the environment. Don't change that. We all live out here to get away from it. They don't need this. racism will stop. Let the kids be kids. They'll grow up. Stop bringing it up. You keep bringing it up, they're gonna keep learning.
Excuse me, if you want to talk, you can go to the mic, but Mr.
That's really all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Morales.
The Open Meeting Act right now.
I know we are, sir.
We can put this on the agenda item and discuss it in a future meeting, but we cannot go.
Point of order, public comment can be on anything people in the public want to talk
Not
about.
if it's on the
We
agenda.
cannot be debating.
It's on the
that.
agenda.
Okay.
So therefore. we discuss
I
it
agree with
when we get-
Mr. Day. Let me explain, and I think Mr. Callahan tried to explain, is that we can listen. We appreciate your input.
Anti-racism task force curriculum update was supposed to be
On the agenda.
That's when we discuss it.
That's something very different, but then
But that's not the same.
No,
it's not-
we have to get there.
But that's not the same. Point of order.
So point
Please.
of order, Madam Chair. I
Yes.
think that the misunderstanding is the anti-racism task force is on the agenda. If you want to speak about something that's not the anti-racism task force, for example, critical race theory, which I think most of you are here to talk about, we need you to keep your comments to critical race theory. If you want to talk about the anti-racism task force, then you need to wait. I know it seems.
It's a funny way of you.
I know.
What's the law?
It's-
But
this-
Dad asked you guys how many racism incidents happened. No one answered.
So again, as a point of clarification, this is so we can follow the Open Meeting Act and we don't disenfranchise somebody. Thank you.
yes, you do. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Can I just ask one quick question before you speak?
Do you want to interact? This is.
I apologize. Can we just clarify what the OMA is and that people understand the process?
You can
I'm
take your mask off.
talking.
You can take your mask off if you're drinking or if you're speaking.
You're not speaking.
I was just about to drink.
And the
Very
cop came over.
convenient. It wasn't-
Why are we engaging? I don't-
Pretty sure he was speaking when his mask was off. And he got arrested.
Please don't just don't engage.
If you'd like to
Excuse
come
me.
up, ma'am, go ahead. You have your 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Polly Hopkins. I live in Hopkinton. Very appropriate. Some of you might know me. I started a Facebook page on Charahoe Community Fight Critical Race Theory in our schools. I saw what was going down with this anti-racism task force from the get-go.
Ma'am, if you want to talk about the anti-racism task force, that's on the agenda later. If you want to talk about critical race theory, please, you have the floor.
Yes.
Okay.
I think I can answer all of your questions. Ms. Picard has received 19 APRAs from me for those specific things. And I will tell you from what I have found in my children's curriculum, I've spent days going through the curriculum, reading everything, and critical race theory is already in our schools. It's being practiced by some of the activist teachers. It's being pushed through reading materials. I have documentation. I urge you all on the school committee to reread the program lobbying policy as well as the political activities policy. By entertaining the anti-racism task force and their agenda to instill critical race theory in this school, you are violating at least these two policies, according to me. There are more people that I would like to ask questions. I don't see Mr. Anderson here because I would like him to answer how he feels about civil rights lawsuits. I believe there's some Title IV lawsuits involved in all of this. I urge you all, step back, step away, stay away from this. It will only bring this entire community problems, lawsuits, and division. If you all want to, you can object to any items in the curriculum. This is on the Charahoe website. I urge you all, download it, write down whatever you think that you've read or seen in the curriculum that you don't agree with, and submit it and let them know. These books on the.
Few more minutes, you're almost done.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Hopkins.
These books that are being put through the summer reading list are the same books we are seeing in Providence. I'm talking to teachers in Providence who are running the full system up there. So we know what we're talking about. We know what we're seeing.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
You can have my 2 minutes.
That's okay.
We will not lose this battle.
Please, sir, that's
sorry,
not
there's someone-
appropriate.
There's one behind you. Can you wait? Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Cassie Algier. I have 2 children in the Chariho School District, and I have one who will be a kindergartner soon. I wanted to come here. I wrote some things down. I strongly disagree with the teaching of critical race theory, also known as CRT, in our school system. This creates division and increases hate and discord. We should be teaching our children that everyone is equal and to love and treat people with kindness as we would want to be treated, period. We as parents should be allowed, this is a different subject, we as parents should be allowed to decide what our child is exposed to and taught and when regarding sexual orientation and gender identity. While having resources available with school counselors is wise, sensitive subjects like this should be left to the home life. At an appropriate age, probably in high school, discussing safe sex practices, STI, and pregnancy prevention are obviously necessary, but all things about sexual orientation, gender identity, and things of that nature should be left out of the curriculum. Safe sex is safe sex, no matter who you have it with. We should not be sexualizing our children. The school should not be asking a child what their gender is, nor should they be pushing the idea of gender identity on our children. This is a matter to be left at home. Religion should be left out of school, all of it. Religious practices should not be taught, and no child should be forced to participate in them, including things like yoga with meditation, all types of meditation, prayer, or any other types of religious practices. Politics. It seems that lately certain political agendas have been pushed in our school. Children of conservative families feel ostracized or silenced because the teachers influence the classroom setting to be one where their views are considered wrong. I have a 13-year-old, and this is things that I'm hearing in her distance learning classes. The summer reading list seems to push the same certain political agenda. There are multiple books with summaries that infer quite a bit of relation to CRT. There's a book about a child coming out as gay, a book about a child who is transgender, including on our elementary school list. Sexuality should not be a topic for our school. There are 2 books on the religion of Islam. Again, religion does not belong in school. A book about sacrificing 13-year-olds is clearly not appropriate for 13-year-olds to be reading. And the kicker, a book about teen suicide or suicide attempt after a childhood of molestation and rape.
Ma'am,
I'm most concerned.
Ma'am, are you finishing up real quick?
I'm finishing up real quick.
Good, thank you.
I'm most concerned, I'm just trying to talk.
No, I know you are. Thank
I'm
you.
most concerned with the books that are introducing trauma and violence. We are sending these kids home with a reading list that encompasses teen suicide, which is very prevalent right now. I'm an ER nurse, I work with this, okay? Or attempts, and child sexual abuse, okay? If there are children in this district who are going through this at home, and they see this book, and they say, okay, I'm gonna look at this and I'm gonna read it, more than likely, they do not have the supports that they need at home to go through and process this information in this book that they are reading. It's quite disgusting. It's quite harmful. These books they risk mental and emotional harm to our children. And our children, this generation that we're bringing up, already has a much larger portion of them have more psychiatric needs than our past generations. And that's coming up. So just to summarize, material that may be traumatic should not be on summer reading lists or reading lists in general. CRT should not be taught in schools. Political influencing should not be allowed in schools. It's already not, but some of the teachers do it anyway, and I hope that you all are aware. And schools should simply get back to the basics of core topics along with simple electives.
Thank you very much. Sir, can you state your name and where you're from, please?
Absolutely.
Thank
Hi, my
you.
name is Sam Alba. I'm from Richmond. I have 2 children in the school district. First off, thank you everyone for being here tonight. Thank you for all you folks do for our children. It is appreciated. 2 points to touch on. I'll be brief. I'm an airline pilot for a major US airline. My world is the United States. Tomorrow I'm going to Arizona, next week, California. I see all these subjects we're bringing up. I see what it does throughout the country. We don't want that here. I'm telling you, we don't want it here. Do I have time to bring up specific examples? I do not. Not in 2 minutes. I'll honor that
I
request.
appreciate you. Thank you.
I'm just telling you, you do not want that here. Second topic, regarding these masks and the distance learning, my airline did a study. Anyone on an airplane with the filtration system we have on these airplanes, the case rate on an airplane, or the chances of contracting COVID on an airplane, 0.004%. Okay, we don't need this distance learning policy after traveling anymore. We don't need these masks anymore. Again, it's not healthy for our children. This was supposed to be 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And now here we are, what are we, a year and a half later? I mean, it's not necessary. Take my word for what it is. Again, I'm here to be respectful and to support our children, and support everyone here. But I'm just telling you, think about that travel policy. These children need to be back to normal. And if they do get back, once they do back to normal, excuse me, following up what these folks said, they don't need indoctrination to that. Sorry, nonsense. It's not necessary. You don't want it. Again, 2 minutes. I'm not going to speak much further. Just please take my point to heart. Thanks very much, guys.
Good evening. My name is Kedrick Swain. I'm from Ashaway. I've got 2 children. One is in the middle school, one's in the high school. I do have a question about discussing the task force later. Will we be able to ask questions about the task force and not to the task force?
It's on the
Okay.
agenda item.
So I will leave those till later.
Curriculum updates.
Yeah, so as long as it pertains to the curriculum update, you're good.
It's a question
if it's
about
So
the
if
task
it's about
force
the
itself.
task force, but it's not about the curriculum update, it can be discussed now, or
Not
should be
discussed, they
discussed.
could, they can comment.
He could comment
Yeah,
on it
right,
now.
we're not gonna talk about
So you could comment on it
Okay.
now unless it's specific to their curriculum report.
It's not specific to the curriculum report,
Then
but
you can do
rather
it now. Do it now.
it's whether or not anybody has considered how changes to the curriculum through the lens of equity or anti-racism or critical race theory would affect the existing requirements or policy for a standards-based classroom or any of the policies for the highly capable students. As far as I know, equity takes people off the top instead of really lifting up those who need it. We already have Title I programs in place for those who truly do need assistance. Secondly, I have a question whether the creation of the anti-racist task force was even in accordance with the curriculum improvement process, which according to the purpose implements curricula that incorporate the most up-to-date research-based instruction in a content area. And most of the topics that are discussed are theoretical, not really based on research, not supported by any professional organizations. Additionally, anti-racism as a whole is not a subject area. It's a social movement. So it seems to me that these changes have nothing to do with the intellectual development of our students, but rather behavioral and societal. And that sounds like indoctrination. So demanding that possibly that students identify a certain way is a clear intrusion into cultural and moral values of the family. It's destruction of the parental authority, and it impedes the separation of school and home. Now, this isn't intended to criticize teachers or administration. I really feel you guys have the best interests of the students at heart, but I got to ask if you really know what you're doing in that critical race theory, equity, anti-racism is a national political movement with a set goal of socialism in America. Is there documented instances of students being racist to each other that is not covered or has not been addressed under the standards of bullying and the bullying policies that are already in place? I was talking to my high school daughter about it, and she said that most racial instances are just kids using bad words because that makes them feel cool. It's not in context. It's not targeted at any racial minorities. It's just kids using words out of ignorance.
You're at your two. If you
Could you sum up?
Okay, sorry. Yeah, last thing.
Thank you. And then what's your name again? Sorry, I want to take your name down.
Kedrick Swain in
Thank
Ashway. And just one last thing, I'm sorry. I know that you're bound by the governor's and requirements and ride, but to any extent possible, again, come September, these masks, they gotta go. So whatever you can do, please do. I implore you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We do have five people virtually that like to speak. Would you, six now? Okay.
So can we ask, just let Kevin go and then?
Oh, is
go
Kevin,
virtual?
Is Kevin up? I'm sorry, Kevin, I didn't see your hand. I apologize. Yeah, we'll let Kevin go and then we'll go to the six virtual people. Thank you. I want to give them the opportunity to speak also.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here. My name is Kevin Travis. I have one daughter in high school at Charahoe. I'm a 1994 graduate. This evening, I'd like to share some facts. Through publicly shared videos linked from the Charahoe website, I've come across documents being produced and discussed, including but not limited to white fragility, white privilege, white supremacy, privilege, decolonization, racial trauma, and more. The definitions and terminologies within these documents is highly offensive, and the fact that they have been developed and openly discussed amongst current Charahoe school committee members and teachers at the request and supervision of the acting superintendent is disappointing. Even more concerning, also found via public records, is the attended use of these definitions along with proposed incorporation in the following areas of the Charahoe School District: updates to the school website, curriculum, changes to school policy and handbooks, morning announcements, teacher and student communications, student and parent communications, off-site mandatory trainings for teachers and staff on diversity, equity, inclusion, better known as re-education camps, additional staff and subcommittees to implement and maintain these changes. I would also like to highlight the district ties to the Charahoe Youth Task Force. While some of the following has been reorganized and edited this recent weekend from the main Charahoe website, it can still easily find the direct affiliation and web links to an organization which employs a current Charahoe school administrator. And on this website, they promote racism, political activism, political fundraising, activities with guides on how to elude the police, avoid arrest, self-incrimination, and much, much more. This literature is easily available to students, especially minors, via the Charahoe School website. It's careless, dangerous, and affects the welfare of all students and may leave the school at risk of liability and exposure. Everything outlined here appears to be racist, biased, discriminatory, and bullying. Some of the areas in discussion also appear to be in direct violation of the Charahoe Code of Conduct and student civil rights, while at the same time being a conflict of interest and unethical. In your declaration and efforts of fighting racism, you have perpetrated just the opposite. In light of the aforementioned, I have no choice but to question the motives and the qualifications of all members involved on the Charahoe Anti-Racism Task Force, the superintendent of Charahoe Schools, and the Charahoe Youth Task Force.
Kevin, you're a little over two. If you could just summarize, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Charahoe is better than this. Please take into consideration the changes that you're trying to implement here. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we? Heidi? So I'm going to time for 2 minutes.
Sorry, that was from much earlier. I'm sorry, I forgot to put it down. I was trying to figure out how to make it work from home.
Heidi, you don't have a comment right now?
No, ma'am, I do not. I'm sorry.
Heidi, that's okay. That's okay. We're working through this. Next person, please. Stephen Moffett. Mr. Moffett. You have the floor if you'd like to speak. Mr. Moffett? Mr. Moffett, you can put your audio on. We can't take his audio. We can't undo his audio. His mute. Yep, ask him to unmute. Okay, thank you. Cassius Spears, you have the floor. Please unmute.
Hello, yeah, this is Cassius Spears. I had a few comments on the speakers that came in and dealing with the school committee. I just want to thank the school committee for allowing me to have these 2 minutes. I'm going to say this, that I agree with the sense that, indoctrinating our students is not something that we want to do. And me, I'm a father, I'm a graduate of Charahoe. I come from, my parents are graduates of Charahoe, my grandparents are graduates of Charahoe, and I'm on both sides of my family. So I have a long history of being within the Charahoe School District. And my kids, I have 4 kids, 2 are currently in the school district right now, and another 2 will be in the next few years. So indoctrinating our students is an important point. And I just want to bring this up, that you have to understand, I don't understand the fear of race and being anti-race and understanding anti-racism as a whole and having those conversations, because currently the education system and the education that's being taught in the school district is of a single race theory. So for us to understand and have conversations dealing with diverse conversations is only going to enhance our students. It's only going to make them understand. And so that when they are speaking to people that are different to them, they have a baseline of where they're going. And I just got to commend the anti-racism task force for looking and taking a deep dive and looking in this in a neutral way, in an unbiased way, and figuring out ways to improve where we can in these school systems, and to have different lenses and views on the system that is inherently not one that is that works for anyone that is not white. So that is important. That is important to understand. And I'll end with this. Just for a note, I know you say let's keep Charahoe the pristine, the beautiful, school that it is. Every day that I was in the school Charahoe, in the school system, I had some sort of racism that I experienced every single day that I went to school there. As an Indigenous person, as a person of color, I experienced that every day. I had long hair. I still have long hair to this day. My children have long hair. When I have teachers that don't understand who I am, where I'm from, or why, my culture or my identity or my race, and I have students that don't do that, racism occurs, even when it's not intended to be racist, even if it's bullying. But I'll end with that.
Thank you.
And I just want to commend the task force for doing the good work and bringing these conversations so we can have dialogue on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean, next person, please. Lauren Casciola. Yeah, Lauren Casciola, please. You have the floor.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, the school committee, for recognizing me, and thank you for your time.
Please take please.
Oh,
ma'am.
sorry. I'm from Richmond. I currently did an editorial about the critical race theory, I'm currently employed as a consulting behavioral technician, which is basically a one-on-one. I work in an inner city school, and I also have a first grader. I can say for a fact that history is not taught in the school that I'm in. So for everyone to say that this is being indoctrinate is not in the field. They are not there 24/7 like us behavioral technicians, teachers, custodians. They are all there for the kids. We've gone.
Please don't interrupt. Sir.
Excuse me.
Please don't interrupt.
This is the lady that called.
Please don't interrupt. Thank you.
Sorry, master.
Okay, thank you so much. And I've had students come up to me that have said in the inner city schools that they are being teased because of their skin color. So I think that we should really look at what we are teaching the kids. And also we should work on social emotional, which is yoga, which helps people have a better mindset of themselves. It's yoga. It's not anything to do with, and I have my degree in sports management. They have done studies. They have done studies that show that it helps with behavioral aspects.
Excuse
Thank
me,
you
we
for-
have a clock going. And we sat and listened when you had the floor, so please be respectful.
What happened to raising our kids to be the best?
Please.
You're not helping yourself. Lauren,
I wasn't
maybe another
speaking.
20 minutes. 20
Um,
seconds.
No, that's okay. Thank you so much for giving me the time to speak, and you all have a great night.
Thank you. Sean? Excuse me, sir, please. Erin
Hi.
Lee.
Good evening, school committee. Erin Lease, Richmond, Rhode Island. Actually, this is a request, and I state this with quite sympathy because I know this is your first hybrid meeting. But for the benefit of the public that's participating via Zoom, could the school committee members please state their name prior to speaking? Because it's so panned out, you can't see who's making the comments. And I was also wondering if there is the capability for the camera to be projected towards the person speaking at the podium of the public, because you cannot see that at all from home. So again, I applaud the efforts for the hybrid meeting, but if they could, the school committee could just state your name prior to speaking so we know who's making comments from home, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Erin.
Thank you.
Good suggestions. Sean, is there any more? Caleb Grant, you have the floor.
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, you have 2 minutes.
Wonderful. Yes, I'll try and be brief. I appreciate the chance to speak, and I am sorry I am not there in person. I thank all of you on the school committee for your attention to this complicated stuff. Briefly, my name is Caleb Grant. I live in Hope Valley. I have 3 kids in the school system. I work in the school system. I appreciate the perspective of the people who are speaking out about critical race theory, but I respectfully disagree. I am very much a person who appreciates conversation across lines. So people who, I work with the Anti-Racism Task Force, but I'm absolutely always wanting to talk to people who disagree with the Anti-Racism Task Force or take issue with it, because I think that having conversations across those differences is really important. And in terms of supporting the Anti-Racism Task Force and supporting the curriculum moves that the school is making, I want to underline that I support the school's work towards this, but an example of my role in this work is that I'm a white guy, number one, and I don't feel that there is any need or any pressure from the Anti-Racism Task Force or anybody doing anti-racism work to make me feel guilty or that I should feel less than for my white heritage. But I think it's important to talk about our nation's history. And in keeping with that, I've been working with Chief Johnson and Richmond PD. I've got a good friend, Dan Kelly, who happens to be a white officer, Corporal Kelly of Richmond PD. We worked with Chief Elwood Johnson and Corporal Kelly, and also Sergeant Pennington of the State Police in having discussions in a high school English classroom about bias. And from the outside, if you looked at the plan for that class, you might say, oh, this is going to be anti-racism people. Yeah, yes, okay. Yes, very, very briefly, we discussed it, but it was a discussion of both sides. There were people who thought that, who were really opposed to the people rioting. There were people who were really supportive of the people rioting, and it was a back and forth. It wasn't indoctrination. It was simply a discussion, and there was 100% respect for both sides. So from my perspective, I think it's a good thing. Thank you very much.
Mr. Grant, thank you. Okay, so at this point, two more? Okay.
And I think maybe.
This will be the last two because public forum is supposed to be 30 minutes, so we're over that. Okay, two more and then one, so we'll do three more and that's it. We're closed, public forum. Okay, who's on? Jessica Purcell. Jessica, you have the floor. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, my name's Jessica Purcell. I live in Richmond. I have a son who's almost done with first grade and another son who will be in the school in a couple of years. You know, it's been a long year as a first grade parent and, you know, back from a year ago. And I really appreciate everyone involved in the school that has helped our kids make it through, from the bus drivers to the cafeteria workers, the teachers, the school committee, everyone. And I just wanted to state that I'm more concerned with the anti-CRT movement than I am with the concept of critical race theory. I think that putting one label such as CRT on a very long and complex history of racism in our country, our state, and our communities is dangerous. It scares people and it's not accurate. I think that adults can understand the concept of critical race theory and use that as a way to understand things like white privilege that they have experienced, even if they don't feel, they never noticed it until they were an adult or until they spoke to someone who has been discriminated against in a different way. I think that it can really help us to move forward. And I think that anti-CRT is really a big problem that will hold us back from moving forward and being better together. So that's mine.
Thank you, Ms. Purcell. Thank you very much. Excuse me, please. Be respectful. Okay, we have one more virtual person and one person in the audience. Thank you. Robert Henninger, you have the floor.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes. Yes, we can, sir.
Okay. I'm going to try to keep this short. CRT does not belong in our schools. CRT's roots are based in Marxist teachings, and our children are being used as political pawns to push this agenda. It's sickening that this is happening, and it needs to be stopped immediately. We as parents have the sole responsibility for teaching our children political views, if so chosen. Children do not inherently see race. Racism is a taught behavior, and CRT is accomplishing just that. Teachers need to stick with the basic school teachings and leave the rest to us as parents. Any teachers who violate this should be terminated and their licenses should be revoked, in my opinion. Recently, I received a reading list for one of my daughters that goes to school in the Charahoe district. And I was shocked and appalled after doing a little research at some of these books. My 9-year-old daughter does not need to be exposed to the curriculum that is being pushed. If I choose to speak with her about the world views, gender identity, that's my prerogative. It's not somebody else's job to teach my child what they believe is right. That being said, I hope you take everybody's views into your own opinions tonight and really take a hard look at this and keep this out of our school district. Thank you.
Ma'am, you have the final comments. Thank you very much for waiting.
Hello, everybody. My name is Trinity Parmalee. I have 3 children in the Char Hills school system. I'm also a graduate of the Char Hills school system. I've experienced lots of stuff while being around many people. The best thing that I think that should be taught in our school system, not race and what's wrong with it, but empathy, not sympathy, empathy, and understanding the difference between sympathy and empathy. You can say, I'm sorry, but you're not going to understand or feel how that person is until you walk in their shoes. Teaching children that is better than teaching someone that there are other people that are different than you. That's wrong. I'm appalled by understanding what is happening in the school system this week. I looked up this school system. We're top 10 in the one of the out of 10, really? In all of the public school systems. I would never pick the school system now. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. With that, closes public forum and we'll move on to policy. Thank you very much.
So the first policy is bus behavior code, which I actually would recommend to table for further review.
Second.
What did you say?
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
so there was a motion to table the bus behavior, well, actually a recommendation from the superintendent to table the bus revision policy. Yeah.
Chair, maybe 5-minute recess.
No, let's keep going. We're fine.
Did we
Yeah.
get a second on that?
Yes, we did. Just one second.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. Okay. So there was a recommendation from the superintendent to chair bus behavior code policy revision to a later date. It was motion was made by Ryan to approve that. It was seconded by Catherine. Yes. And is there any conversation, questions? No. Okay, I'll take this to a vote. We're going to table this to a later meeting. Those in favor? Gotta get back on my. Okay, so anybody opposed to tabling it? No,
Unanimous.
it was unanimous.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, Ms. Picard, letter B in policy.
So the responsible use of technology policy, I recommend approval of the revisions to this policy, which was also reviewed by legal counsel.
So moved. Second.
There was a motion to accept the responsible use of technology revision. It was, I'm sorry, motion made by Mr. Luzon, seconded by Mr. Callahan. Does anyone have any questions about the policy? I know we've looked at this a couple of times, so. Anyone have any comments, questions?
I do
No.
have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Christie.
I know that during final exams this year, there were some teachers who required the microphone to be on, and they had the capability of turning the microphone on, even if the student didn't turn their microphone on. It was really distracting for a couple of the exams, because like in one case, I could hear the bird calling and a fire alarm went off and all sorts of stuff. But if I understand this policy, it says a teacher won't for monitoring purposes, but will only turn that microphone on if they need to address the student. Is that the way that works?
That is the way, and I was Sean said, but I'm not sure if it's a Zoom function, because they can't turn on their microphones to the computer. Yeah.
Okay, so they don't have. So so in red, it says the district will not remotely activate the camera or microphone for monitoring.
Correct, they don't have the
monitoring
ability to do it.
purposes. So they can't do the mic either?
Cannot.
Okay, thank you. That was my clarification.
That was your clarification?
Clarification,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you. Any other questions or clarifications with regards to this policy? No? Okay, I'll take it to a vote. Those in favor of accepting the policy? Any opposed? Recusals of abstentions? I think the ladies were fine back there, so that was unanimous too. Thank you. Okay, business.
I recommend approval of the school lunch program contract with Chartwells per the attached memos seen by Ned Draper, written by Ned Draper and Chartwells District Manager Barbara Cohen, contingent upon approval by RIDE and legal counsel. I concur with Ned that Chartwell staff have done an outstanding job.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, there was a recommendation from the superintendent to approve the school lunch contract with Chartwells. It was, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. So there was a motion made by Mr. Luzon and a second from Mr. Callahan. Open it up to discussion or questions. Anything for clarification? Regards, any questions for Ned? No. I guess, do you have any comments, Mr. Draper?
The only comment I would have to make is Bride sent us a letter approving the contract form
Oh,
that they had, and that came in within the last couple of days.
okay, good. Okay, good. So we'll take that to a vote. Those in favor of approving the contract with Chartwells? Any
Unanimous.
opposed?
Yep, they're good.
They're good. So that was unanimous. Thank you very much. Move on to the grant update from Katie, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, so we have Katie Karakosian, that should be with us virtually. If we could move her up to panelist, and she is going to review the details of the Champlain Foundation grant, the American Honda Foundation grant, and our current work with the school-based mental health services grant program. We have Katie.
Point of order, Chair.
Yes.
Do we want to move this into a motion in a second, open for discussion, and then give Katie the floor? Are all three being recommended?
Not the third one.
The third one is for your review because the deadline is July 9th, and we're in the process of completing the application. So we haven't received anything yet.
It is being recommended for approval
For
tonight
tonight.
because of the deadline.
Yeah, so maybe, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, so I just,
Take it as a whole.
Chair, would you prefer to do one at a time or just?
I would like your idea, so please stay with, I think you're saying maybe.
I recommend that
Right.
I make a motion that we approve, give approval to submit the following two grants.
Chaplain, all three.
All three, sorry.
That's okay. So
Second.
Thank you.
Chair, I would, point of order, I'd request that we do them separately.
You want to do
I have
this?
different votes on them.
Oh, okay, thank you. That's good to know. So we'll do them separately.
I
So.
withdraw my motion.
I withdraw my second. I
Okay.
make a motion.
Thank you and thank you.
So I make a motion to approve the Champlain Foundation grant.
Second.
You guys,
Open for discussion.
yeah, then we'll be open for discussion. Yep.
Do you want Katie then to? now-
Yes, now Katie can do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we have Katie. Yep, there she is. Okay, so Katie, we're going to start with the Champlain Foundation, please.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes, Katie.
Excellent, thank you. So you said start with Champlain. So I'm pleased to share the high school's proposal for this year's Champlain Grant, which is due shortly. Our request is for funding in the amount of $88,190.34. This will allow us to renovate the band room to create what we have called a Charahoe amphitheater learning suite to allow for flexible student use. This connects quite nicely and is a driving force with our Vision 2023 and also connects to our 2 years of XQ funding with our planning and momentum grants. I wanted to share several mock-ups that I created of the space. As you see, this is referred to as a learning suite because for those who do not know, this room has 3 small soundproof recording studios that you see on the bottom of your screen, if you will, as well as an adjoining kitchenette area and office space. Our grant request includes funds to renovate this room with, for example, new dark flooring and room painting, adjustable lighting, a room partition, collapsible risers, along with more stackable seating and the same style that we currently have, so we could accommodate an audience of up to 100. A new state-of-the-art sound system, window shades, folding tables, rolling mirrors for practice and rehearsal use, as well as upgrades to the existing office area, kitchenette, and all 3 studio spaces. Here are some more views just to show the intended flexibility and a flexible nature of the space with a banquet style setup here. And here you see a potential theater rehearsal style setup. And lastly, a community event setup with risers and a stage. But there are many more configurations, as many as possible, of course, and I just wanted to share a few here with you now.
Thank you, Katie. Anyone have any questions? Mr. Day has a question for you.
Yes.
My understanding is this is the room in the corner of D wing, right?
I'm not sure if it's the wing. I would have to double check.
Existing band room,
Oh,
Yes.
existing band room.
BC, it's at the end of B and C Hall.
That's
End
what
of
I
B.
said. I heard 100 people in there. Has this been run through the fire department?
I do.
That room is, I have a little concerns that I see things in here that, you know, you're talking 100 people in that room? I don't think it's legal.
I believe they were talking about combining the chorus room and the band room. Just that is what that
Well,
picture
does-
is showing.
That ain't what I see here.
Well,
Shows me one room.
I don't want to speak for you, Katie.
yes. I have been in discussions with others about concerns that there might be specifically with both grants. I can go back to another level of review if that is a concern. But discussions had, surrounded that issue. And obviously we would conform to any expectations with fire marshal related to this room and just purchase less chairs.
You're telling me one thing, and now when I question you, you're changing the story already. This sounds like another RGB proposal here, where I question things, and then later on I find out that I'm the one who brought things up that found out that we were being shortchanged and smokes and mirrors. We're gonna have 1, 2, 3. We're gonna buy a bunch of tables to use for banquet setup. How often are we gonna have a banquet in that room? This to me is pie in the sky, and I think it needs to be rethought by some members of this school committee before we buy into this, because this is not realistic. This is not realistic. We've got 4 different potential setups here in a room that is not changing one bit except moving furniture in and around that we're gonna have to find places to store them when we're not using them.
Mr. Day, are you just concerned about the fire?
I'm just concerned about the whole damn plan,
Okay,
because I
thank
don't
you.
think it's well thought out. I just think it's a money grab without having a real overview of what we're gonna do here.
Thank you. Any other comments from school committee?
I would,
Yes, Mr.
Chair, I would echo Dave Stahl for the Zoomers. I would echo Bill's sentiments that I want to see these things brought really thoroughly. When we're applying for a grant, we need to see that the fire marshal's been talked to. We need to know that the occupancy is there. We need to have plans for storage of things. I just think there needs to be some more thorough planning. So I'm with Bill on this.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, this is for the forest and the band stuff.
Band room.
Is there a band in a forest that is going to be able to use this space?
We do have a chorus. The band was on hold through the pandemic issue.
Okay, well, there'll be a band.
Hopefully.
I know that their focus is moving forward. We could not find a teacher as of yet.
Yes.
We definitely have a chorus and chorus teacher.
So,
Yes, Donna.
so my understanding, and Katie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said that, okay, let's forget about the capacity of the room. If the fire marshal says 100 is too many, then bring it down to 50. But I think what you're trying to do through this grant application is to allow us to get the furniture and the accoutrements that are needed to be more flexible in this one room, so we can use the space for other things besides just the band, if they're using it for the band at all. Am I right in assuming this?
Yes, you are correct. The goal is for the flexibility of the space. We've done mock-ups of what this might look like, and also done reviews of how the space is currently used. It could be used for anything from band sectionals and lessons to things like community partner luncheons. We did have a small, perhaps banquet wasn't the term I would use, but we did have a small luncheon there for our XQ grant through our work-based learning focus. And we did have a small luncheon there, for example. We brought in tables from another space. We set it up to use, we brought in outside partners from the performing arts, for example, and brought in a series of students. This could also be used for rehearsals after school and even things like independent study showcases, practicing for Skills USA, things like poetry out loud, and would be similar to like a black box theater, if you've seen it, where you can kind of break the space down and change it in different ways, similar also to the GAM Theater as well, if any of you have been to that space. It's kind of a blank canvas, if you will, and can accommodate a variety of scenarios through the, as you said, accoutrement that we would be purchasing. And we also see great flexibility in the recording spaces. Those we feel are underutilized currently, and there's a variety of things that students could do in small groups of 1, 2, or 3. They certainly could accommodate a small group. Say, for example, students at CTC wanted to do a demonstration of some of their work, but then they wanted a quiet, soundproof space, if you will, to go and edit that into a podcast or into a video. This would allow that. So we're hoping that with the new exposure and possibilities of this space, that there'd be more student use for especially these what are currently recording studios and have quite nice acoustics, again, to allow for soundproof uses.
So Katie, assuming that you are going to check with the fire marshal and be in total compliance for the use of the room to fire restrictions and any regulations, I think it's an excellent idea. And I hope we can not just submit the grant, but I hope the grant is given so that we can have more use of this really valuable space. That's a great use of that space. Thank you.
Yeah, Linda McAllister, you have your hand up. You have the floor.
Yes, I agree with Donna. I think what we're looking at here is the diversity of the space and figuring out all the different ways we can use it, but we would never allow for more people to be in here than the fire marshal expected. So I think it's a wonderful idea, and it certainly opens it up to many, many uses. So thank you.
I don't know who had your hand up.
I have one more comment.
Okay, then Mr. Day, then Mr. Stahl.
Looking at the 4 drawings here, half of this room is being used for storage. How are we improving that room? Storage cabinet for intimates, mirror storage, risers seating, table and storage, seating storage, partition storage. Half of this room is being taken away for band practice. It's being used as a storage facility. I'm telling you, this thing is not very well thought out. And we should table this until we come back with some real good, legitimate and thoughtful thoughts in this.
Thank you, Mr. Day. Mr. Stahl, you have the floor.
So I have a secondary concern. I think the ideas here are good. Finding ways to make a space more versatile are good. Finding more uses for the space, doing some luncheon events. I don't have a problem with any of those. I think they're good in concept. I think Bill raises some really good practical points. When you put something forward like this, but you don't even know a capacity number, that's just a really basic first step. My secondary concern is that this is in the year and a half, I guess, that I've been on this board. This is the second Champlain Grant that I recall. Champlain Foundation grant. The first one was the Mindfulness Center, which I thought was a poorly prepared grant and I couldn't get answers for, and I voted against, and I thought it was poor use of space. And we got denied for that grant. And like many of you, I serve on boards and have served on boards for several different nonprofit organizations, some of whom have received Champlain Foundation grants. My concern is that if you submit multiple bad requests, they stop taking your requests seriously. So I think we need to be really careful to make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row and everything lined up when we apply for a grant through this foundation. So that would be my secondary reason for opposing it tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Stahl. Any other comments from the committee? Yeah, go ahead.
Linda.
Yes. Oh, the superintendent first then. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Take care. Okay, good.
I know. Katie, did receive feedback. I know the triple grant was submitted prior to my arrival, but I know she reached out to Champlain to get direct feedback on the grant. So Katie, I don't know if you want to share.
That's not really relevant to this topic.
No. If you want to share the conversation around this grant based on the feedback you received and how you've incorporated that feedback into the new proposal.
Yes, the feedback that we received was in fact that we were one of the more successful districts with Champlain, barring the past year, and not knowing, of course, the response this year. So we had received, kudos for that. One thing of concern related to how the middle school proposal from last year connected with the general education curriculum. So one thing I've prepared, I just want to make sure I'm reviewing my notes properly, is a consideration of how this connects to the general education curriculum. This obviously supports students' needs in a variety of ways, but if students were focused on 21st century skills, that is one area that I've made a connection. Students' ability to present and listen, to move outside of their comfort zone, connecting to learner qualities, for example, are all elements of the narrative that I'm prepared to present. So just making that connection to how this would also impact all of our students. I would say the current band room supports a smaller percentage of the school. And the goal with this flexible space is to ensure that each and every student, each and every year of their high school career passes through this space and utilizes the space in some way. Again, whether it's for Skills USA, whether it's for Poetry Out Loud or a film festival, different ways that we can break apart the space, set it up in different ways, and have it be a very vibrant, living, breathing space within our community and within our school, but also for our community, I think is important. So connecting it to the curriculum is what I've been considering, as well as how it connects to our goals within Vision 2023 and how it connects to our XQRI planning and momentum grants, which very much focused on the freshman experience, but also focused on work-based learning and our ideas related to imagine and immersion experiences. We think these very much connect to those three pillars, as well as our strategic plan moving forward.
Ma'am in the back, would you have a-
Amanda Blau, Hopkinton. I'm gonna have the same question for all three grants. I don't know if it's a Katie question, it's Gina or Ned question. The initial outlay of cash from the district, if any, that will supplement the grant. If there's a number, I'd appreciate hearing it, and any future costs to the district. Sometimes we get an initial grant, we get X, Y, or Z. There's subsequent costs year after year. And also, what are the filing or submission deadlines for each of the three grants? I'm not going to get up each time, but if somebody can kind of weave that into the presentation, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you.
To the slide deck, I think it's on the first slide.
Due date is July 1st. The first one is July 1st. This is Linda Lyle. It's July 1st, 2021. So we'll remember to say that each one. The first one, the Champlain Grant, is the 1st of July.
Okay, so when you talk about tabling, that's not really an option, right?
At this point, probably not. That's a good point.
And her second question was initial and ongoing
Yeah.
expenses.
I can speak to that. There's no cost matching for any of these grants. There are no costs to the district that we've made in these requests. I do not see any ongoing costs for any of the three grants. There are many just items such as window shades. I mean, if something were to break, of course, then it would need to be repaired, but there's no recurring costs that I foresee in any of these requests. Shelving, folding tables, etc. Perhaps LED lights for the new lighting. But other than that, I would think they would be very minimal recurring costs for the district.
As Katie does the next grant, I'll make sure we incorporate your questions.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Drake.
Yeah, just one other point on the America Honda.
We're not there yet.
Oh,
Still on a Champlain Grant.
I thought we were lumping. them.
No, we're doing one at a time. Okay, so is there anybody from the virtual world that would like to speak? Any hands raised?
On Champlain?
On Champlain? Just want to make sure we get everybody. No? Okay, thank you. So there was a motion and a second of the motion, so I'm going to take this to the vote, to the committee. At this point, I would ask the committee if they would approve the Champlain Foundation grant as proposed by Katie. Those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Those opposed? Two oppositions? Anybody abstaining or recusing? No. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm sorry, yes, it passed. Thank you.
So the next item on the grant update is the American Honda Foundation, and Katie will go into that.
We need to make a motion and
I make a motion to approve the American Foundation grant.
a
Second.
second. Thank you. Was that Mr. Stahl?
And some others.
Oh, okay, no, it was like one of those.
Several of
Okay,
them.
there was a motion by Mr. Callahan and a second by Mr. Stahl to accept the American Foundation grant.
That grant is due August 1st,
Honda Foundation.
and I'm gonna ask Ned just to discuss, was it Amanda? I'm sorry, Amanda's question
Okay.
around any contribution. you would like.
Yeah, and in that case, the district would be moving forward relative to the equipment. A lot of the equipment in those spaces is at the end of useful life or is not really appropriate for the programming. So in this case, it'd be an example of where we would get grant funding to do things that have really reached end of useful life. So we'd be moving forward. And then the ongoing cost would be replacement down the road, but we'd be making up some ground on that grant.
Katie, do you want to move into the review of the American Honda?
Yes. So secondly, I've prepared materials with middle school administrators and staff on the American Honda Foundation grant. This grant has a STEM focus and is due later this summer, as you see. As you see, the amount of our request is $73,604.94. These funds will be used towards a series of room renovations and equipment purchases. We believe this renovation would strengthen the pipeline for STEM students from middle school to high school, college, and career is our focus. So again, I've created a room mock-up to include the line items on our budget. This space will be entirely new from the ceiling down, except for several repurposed storage areas and work tables, as you see. This area will include a new partition in the center of the room, new ceiling tiles, new student workbenches and seating, a new fume hood, an updated sink area and display shelves for former student projects, as well as current student projects that are actively being worked on. And our grant also includes various STEM-focused equipment requests, as you see on the right.
Yes, Mr. Day.
I see where we got a fume hood. Is this being ventilated to the outside?
Yes, yes, this is, and it's been in consultation with Mr. Sullivan.
There's an existing system in there now?
Yes, there is. That needs to be replaced.
Thank you, Mr. Day. Good questions. Anybody else? Well, then I'll take it to a vote. There was a motion and a second to approve or accept the American Honda Foundation grant as proposed by Katie. Those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Abstentions or recusals? It's unanimous. That passed. That was approved. Katie. Thank you.
So the next item on the agenda is the school-based mental health service grant program. It is, deadline is due July 9th. There is no current matching cost for the district. We are working on this. We are one of approximately 5 or 6 districts considered rural and able to apply. So RIDE reached out directly to those communities, us being one of them. It's up to $255,000 per year, and with the goal of increasing school mental health professionals, like you would see a school psychologist, a social worker, to work with the Department of Ed and 2 urban districts, along with Rhode Island College, to work on recruitment, retainment, and supportive programs around multi-tiered systems of support and responding to intervention for our students' needs. This is work in progress in the district. This would help us accelerate that work.
Thank you. I make a motion to approve this grant.
Second.
There was a motion to approve, Catherine made a motion to approve this grant, and Donna raised her hand first.
Okay.
Okay, and Donna seconded. I opened this up for discussion or questions, or if Katie wants to give a, she,
Yeah, this is down, and I won't
Okay.
Yeah, that's probably, she's been working closely with Special Ed Director Jen Durkin, myself, Assistant Superintendent Jane Daly, as well as multiple school leaders. We have working sessions actually happening this week because we're in the process of getting this ready for submission. It was a quick, as you can probably have seen it in your paperwork, we received this last week. So it's a quick turnaround, but we didn't want to let the opportunity go because like we said, this is already the work that we have in progress. It'll only support and leverage the work we've already done.
any questions? Yes, Catherine.
So when you say it's using the work that we're already doing, so are you proposing sweeping curriculum changes if we get this grant, or are you saying we're going to support the curriculum we already have voted on and is in place with this grant money?
This will help. So the district has very good support processes for the multi-tiered systems of support. What we need to do better is the implementation within the classroom so that the strategies are more versatile. So it's not just the social worker that has the strategy, but we're building the capacity of all educators to know how to weave it in and understand how to deal with students who've dealt with trauma, stress, so that we're keeping students in the classroom and not sending them out.
Sure. So just to clarify though, that that's taking curriculum that we've already approved and just widening the net, so to speak, so that other people understand how to implement.
Yeah,
that
this is
better.
for the work on the strategies to help them learn how to apply. Very similar to what Dr. Pat is already doing within the school systems and at a much larger scale.
Fantastic. I so fully support this grant. I think we do need more mental health support within schools.
And I second that.
Mr. Lozano, you had your hand raised. You have the floor, sir.
Yes, Gina, just real quick, it states right here, if selected, we will work collaboratively with 2 Rhode Island urban schools. In theory, are 3 school districts sharing it?
No, every district will get $255,000 and you'll get it every year as long as you meet all the requirements of the grant every year. You have the opportunity to go back.
So they're only gonna award 3. But
They've
2
already awarded, I believe they awarded the 2 urban, they're looking for a rural district.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stahl and then Mr. Callahan. Mr. Stahl, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. This is the one that that I really wanted pulled out because I'm definitely opposed to this. I'm opposed to this for many reasons. I understand the mental health needs of kids in our school. I don't think that school is the right place to address most of those mental health needs. And I understand the social emotional learning piece. But again, I think that those things are better done outside of the school. And RIDE is not an organization that's putting out information or recommending resources that I find trustworthy or good. I find them in most cases to be bad. Some of the other organizations that were in here, I wish we had more time to discuss it because maybe I could talk through them, but SHAPE, I don't understand how they work and what they do and what their criteria are. We don't have time for that tonight to win me over. The school mental health quality assessment piece that comes from the state, I have no idea what their criteria is, what they do, why and how, and what they would ask from us on an ongoing basis. I also, I think Katie could answer that. Katie already answered this in terms of for none of these, she doesn't see recurring costs for any of these. significantly increasing your mental health services over 5 years with grant money creates an expectation and a standard for mental health care, puts you in a place where you've set that now as the expectation and the standard, and then you have to do something to continue that. And we're talking about $250,000 a year. So I just don't think that that's a reasonable thing and a reasonable amount of money for us to put into social emotional learning and mental health. I just absolutely disagree with it in principle. And there's too much here that I'm uncomfortable with, so I adamantly oppose.
Thank you, Mr. Stoll. Yeah, well, Mr. Callahan first, and Mr. Callahan, you had your hand.
Thanks, Chair.
You're welcome.
So ongoing costs and initial setup costs. Comment on those. There's still none for anything, Katie? Nothing associated with. So after 5 years, we would just make a decision at that time if we want to continue supporting it on our own.
The goal would be to create the project plan so that the work plan moves out the need for the two, because the idea is to build the capacity of the adults to be able to understand how to build in strategies that are incorporated throughout their lessons.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Donna
I
Chambers?
am absolutely in favor of this. I think it's an opportunity for us. I have spoken to several elementary school principals who have relayed to me their biggest challenges are right now is the mental health disruption in the education system. It not only is important for everyone to understand how to deal with these disruptions, these outbreaks, for the child that is being the behavioral problem, but it's also disrupting our other children's capacity to learn in the classroom. These are principals that normally don't complain about anything, but this is something that they said is a critical issue for their administration. And I think this is a perfect opportunity to get involved more with the ability and the money to do this. I'm in total support.
Thank you. Mr. Day had his hand raised, and Ms. Macaruso, and then Mr. Anderson.
Gina, I'll put you on the spot a little bit. You were at the same meeting I was the other day there, where Dr. Harrison said that he presented a program and only 22 of our faculty. How do you feel about that kind of a number responding to something as important as this? Because I agree, this is a big issue in this community and in this country, and been doing as little as I can to work towards better mental health, both youth and adults. So I just want to put you on the spot as to your thought on only 22 of the faculty taking the opportunity to learn more about.
I do think with something like this, the opportunity, there's lots of competing interests, right? So I don't think it's because our teachers don't believe it's important. I think they're being pulled in multiple directions by, and again, Dr. Hudgens allowed us to sort of continue to access the support. So I think we're thinking about how that looks so that the opportunities are best suited so our teachers can access them more. This would allow the opportunity to be, and as we all know, when we can do it inside the classroom, and we, like, for example, when Dr. Pat comes in to work side by side with the adults, that's on the ground learning, right? That's that workplace, and you can't, and there's no substitute for it. So I do think that, I don't think our teachers don't want the opportunities. I think there's a lot of competing interests, and you're looking for ways to sort of embed them throughout their day so that they're on the ground learning, just like we would expect for our students with work experiences and internships and apprenticeships.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Day. Ms. Macaruso, and then Mr. Anderson. Ms. Macaruso, you have the floor.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. So the first thing that I thought of when I looked at this information in our packet was Mr. Day and how he brought us and worked to bring us that safety consult from Dr. Joseph Arati, the past superintendent of Newtown Schools. And that was such an instrumental and transformational safety training for me personally, professionally, as a school committee member, as a parent in so many ways. It really transformed my perspective on the importance of not only the physical facility safety that Mr. Day is often leading us through. But Dr. Arati really focused on the need for schools to identify students that are disengaging. And that disengagement and mental health, the development of mental health disorders in our children is just as essential in terms of preventing tragedy school-wide and supporting our individual students' growth and development. Clearly I'm in favor of this. And I had that connection, and I just wanted to thank Mr. Day. Again, I've not yet been able to shake some of the things that we learned in that training, in that consult. Also, I think we need as a school committee to really consider the time and context. Our students are coming from distance learning, a long year of isolation, not only isolation, but isolation and anxiety, fear, concern, right? We didn't isolate because of snow days. We isolated, think of why, because a global pandemic was happening. Vicariously, there's no way for our students to have not absorbed some of the news and some of the fears and some of the conversations that adults had in their spaces. And many of them lost family members to COVID or watched parents become sick from COVID. And here they're coming back to school, and that's exactly where we want them to be. Therefore, right, we need to have a wide breadth of support for them. This grant is incredibly well timed. I feel that our district is a shining district. I think that we are well positioned to be the rural district to be chosen because of all the innovation that we do and how globally we think about our students. So I absolutely support it, and I implore the school committee to consider those two factors as well. Dr. Arati's presentation, as well as the re-entry to society post-COVID for our kids. Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. Mr. Anderson, you have your hand raised.
Sure. I just would like to remind the committee of two things. First of all, the school district, as all school districts in the state of Rhode Island, is a recipient of funds under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which is federal law. As such, we have an obligation to educate special education children who qualify in the area of emotional disturbance. We have a population of those kids. They are part of our school. They are part of our community. We have an obligation to educate them. The second issue I would want the committee to be aware of is the issue of parity. If somebody was frankly offering $255,000 a year for a program that was unrelated to mental health, say a reading program for $255,000 a year, I don't think we would be having this discussion. And I want to be very careful that when the school committee considers this and discusses this, that the school committee is respectful of issues of children with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Mr. Stahl, did you have your hand raised?
Yes, I did.
Okay, please, you have the floor, sir.
So John just made a really interesting point, and he's essentially making a legal argument that you're obligated to educate a certain population, and therefore you should feel compelled to apply for and receive this grant, implying that not doing it would be somehow illegal, and that's just ridiculous. It's outrageous. His notion of if this was a reading grant, if it was a reading grant and it had RIDE and it had the same organizations on it, I would be opposing it on the same merits. I would evaluate every grant based on the organization, what they're asking us to do, and what it requires from us ongoing. So I think that's a really unrealistic perspective that John just gave us. The other thing I want to say is the mental health issues. We sat here around this table when we were able to be around this table pre-pandemic in a budget cycle. And I needed more information from you about behavioral health specialists and people that we have in the rooms. And I've spent the year getting a better understanding of those positions and what they do. And you were all convincing me of why they're really important. And I want to offer balance to this perspective that I've heard even in the last week from parents that are in the middle school, where there are all those interventions in place, all those behavioral specialists, and a student that's not even a particularly difficult student but is there receiving some of those extra services. The mom's getting a phone call asking if she can talk to her child because there's no one at the school that can help during the school day to help manage behavioral things. I don't think that all these things work. And the last point that I want to make, one is John's perspective. One is that I don't think that all these things work or that the school is the place to do them. When a case gets too serious, it needs to go somewhere else. The last point I want to make is we're hearing that there are no additional ongoing costs. And yet we're also hearing we do this for 5 years. And if we want to continue it, it's $250,000 a year to continue that. Those two things don't work together. There are either no ongoing costs or there's $250,000 a year and growing of sustaining this. So still, for all those reasons, I oppose.
Yes, Mr. Sean back there. Okay, thank you. This person, Jessica Swain. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to make this work.
You did it.
Okay, good. Hey, okay. So I am Jessica Swain. I am from Ashaway and I have you on 2 devices and I'm trying to leave one of them. I'm sorry about this. I'm double muted. Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. I was on the computer and the iPad. Okay, so do I agree that mental health is important in the school? Absolutely. So very much so in the past year. It's very, very, very important. However, I do have to side with Mr. Anderson. Was that his name? There will be a conflict of interest if you're trying to do a duplication of services. If you guys are looking for a service that you currently have in your district and you're underutilizing it and you're looking for additional funding, there are some legal ramifications for that. The other concern I have is that if you're adding more to the teacher's caseload, I think you're going to get some backlash from the teachers only because you do need a skilled professional to check to make sure that what you think you're seeing and what you're actually seeing are the same thing. So there are some students that look as if they're behavioral. They might be tired, they might be hungry, or hey, guess what? They just survived a pandemic. So I think that funding needs to be added? Yes, but I'm very concerned, and I do think it needs to happen, but I'm very concerned that it needs to be looked into further as to the proper avenue to make that happen.
Thank you.
Sorry, thanks.
No, that's good. Thank you. Sean, next person. That's it. Oh, it was only one? Thank you. I thought there was 2.
She was on twice.
Oh, she was on twice. Okay, thank you so much. I think we're done having our conversations about that particular grant, the school-based mental health services grant program. So I'm taking it to a vote. So those in favor of approving this for the school to apply for the school-based mental health services grant program, please raise your hand.
Aye.
2 ayes. And those opposed? Thank you, Mr. Stahl. Any recusals or abstentions? Okay, so we're gonna get those. Thank you. And the grant was, was passed. Thank you. Majority vote.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Katie. Have a good night.
Thanks.
You too.
On to C.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is our K-12 science curriculum update, and Susie Scanatieko is here with us. She's our STEM specialist for the middle and high school, and she will provide an overview. I am recommending approval of the revised K-12 science curriculum.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, the superintendent made a motion to approve this revised science curriculum, district science curriculum. There was a motion by Mr. Luzon, a second by Mr. Callahan. Now we're open for discussion. Please, Susie, you go.
Yep.
As Mrs. Picard said, good evening. My name is Susie Scannapieco. I'm the STEM specialist in our district for 5 through 12. Tonight, I'll be presenting the K through 12 science curriculum for approval. I will highlight some of the main points. I would like to thank our team for all of their hard work involved in developing this curriculum. I especially want to take a moment to thank our leader of the task force, Mrs. Daly. It is through her guidance, organization, and great attention to detail that this process always runs so smoothly. I have to give so much credit to our team, our K-4 member, Kate Picara, middle school, Steve Cormier and Bethany Confessori, Martha Dion and Alex Romano from the high school, John Labrilla, who's the science department head, Catherine Sagamang, who is the department head at the high school, and the team really did work together for the quality of this curriculum does demonstrate that. I want to note that as the school committee knows, we always highlight in yellow anything that is new and cross out anything that is being deleted. And I actually wanted to take a moment to notice that nothing here was added, that Charahoe has always had really high expectations and strong foundations when it came to science. And there was really no wordsmithing that needed to be done in this area because we've been doing this well for a very long time. We have continued to use the NGSS standards, which are the next generation science standards, and that is going to continue as well. All of the documents you were given are highlighted and linked here, and you had the full documents, obviously. We are just highlighting a few of the pieces here. I think it's really important to note that as a prior math specialist, one of the things that we do well is not only hold our kids to high expectations, but support that process. So as the math specialist, we had very clear human interventions in place to allow that to happen. We have those high standards, but we scaffold along the way as necessary. So those are the additions you're seeing there, the high expectations along with the robust and responsive system of supports. So that is included in all of our curriculum, including in science. The next as well, just states a little clearer that we will be using the the next generation science standards, as we always want to keep our students being competitive across our country. We are all using the same standards to keep that in mind. Again, a place where we didn't have to do any editing, and I'm proud of this because our science curriculum is based on inquiry. Our students are always asked to question the ideas in science because it is experimental as a part of its nature in a content area where you're always learning more and nothing is ever static. And that is the entire point of it. It is about phenomena, learning about phenomena, and then pulling the research from all different areas to support your theory. And we are not only doing rote memory and terminology in the area of science. But again, not new. Included is our statement of educational goals. We want our students to be using all of their other skills, math, English, science, in the science. We want to make sure that they're good at writing, listening, speaking, reading, all of those things that, again, not much has changed there. We have had ELA teachers teaching PD to help better have the science labs written to a higher standard so that the writing skills are being implemented in science classes. Again, not much new here. We did add things for efficiency and for use of the community and for the teachers. So although this is all yellow, it was mostly just a landing spot for all of the K through 5 curriculum to be linked on. Excuse me. So you'll see here that we use GEMSNet. GEMSNet is a network. Of course, I'm speaking. I'm sorry. We use GEMSNet, which is out of URI. They are a program that is very specifically noted for its amazing professional development and their use of kits. Thank you. Oh, thank you
Oh,
very
wow,
much.
two.
Thank you. Very generous. So So the idea here is that I've been to many GEMSNet trainings. I'm actually going to one on Tuesday at the Bay campus at URI. And what I really love about their program is that they focus on elementary school teachers who may or may not have the strongest background on science, but can really teach well. And the ideas that are in the science have to be explained in a certain way, again, keeping to that inquiry. So GEMSNet really does an amazing job of that professional development and continues to grow, and I hope to see them continue. Again, in the middle school, we've added scope and sequence documents to the main pages, but they've always existed. They just weren't linked in the same way. We did continue the 6th through 8th curriculum, and you had all those documents. I wanted to note that at the high school on the RIDE graduation requirements, that there are 3 required science classes to be taken as part of successful completion of a high school diploma. We offer so many electives, and we hope that kids take 4 credits of science, of course, or more. And we know many kids who double up in even their freshman year and take way more than 4 credits. These are what we would call more traditional science electives, but we also have quite a few agricultural science electives that makes our school very unique. And we have the greenhouses and obviously other pieces to our campus that allow for that hands-on learning. We have gone through the entire curriculum as a triple check to make sure that at some point, every single standard has been met, and it has been done both at the middle school and at the high school level to make sure that we have covered everything we should be covering. Just so you are aware, the future will have Rhode Island legislation being put into place for June 2025. You will be hearing from me, hopefully again, I'm not sure. But the idea that we will be looking at high quality curriculum material. We are doing that in ELA as right at this moment. Math is underway and science will be next. So we will be making sure that we get the very highest quality materials, research them all, and then pick the one that's best suited for our district. Obviously, we needed to make sure our references were all there. And so we made sure that we updated that list as well. You guys had, like I said, the 1,000-page document. Probably, I'm not sure how many pages it was. I wanted to highlight for the community the main points, but if there were any questions in the whole document, I'm happy to share those as well. Any questions?
Catherine?
Yeah, it's great, very comprehensive. I love all the electives. I know my freshman was one of those to plant science, and it was a fantastic class and counts for a science credit. So I think you guys have done a really excellent job per usual on the curriculum, and I appreciate it. It's an opus, so thank you for all the work. Big one.
Anybody on the virtual, Sean? Anybody with their hand up? No?
So well organized. It's so well thought out and easy for a parent. So thank you. I'm glad I had the opportunity.
And I put the team back up there. They are the ones who, you know,
Sean,
they
you're pointing.
fine tooth comb. They definitely do.
Sean, is there someone with their hand raised? Oh, Jane. Oh, I can't see you, Jane. Sorry. Jane Daly, you have the floor. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to take this opportunity to thank Susie, who oversees all of the STEM curriculum. So in our 5-year revision, she's got multiple each year to oversee, and also Dana Hall, who oversees all of our humanities curriculum. They've just done a tremendous job. And even most recently this spring, we started, because of the new adoption of our ELA curriculum, we started in the units for the first quarter or trimester have already been drafted, and they've already got a head start on next year's work. So I just need to commend them. They just do a tremendous job. So thank you.
Thank you.
And just to add, both Jane and the team have done an excellent job overall, but we've added more community members to the team, which is always very welcome. Parent input and community input is crucial to making sure we do a good job. And I think we were able to access them in ways that provides us with another lens. So that's helpful. So thank you all for all your hard work.
Thank you.
I think that's it. Thank you, Susie.
Questions?
Oh, I'm
Just need to
sorry.
take a vote.
I know, but
Oh.
Mr. Stahl had his
Oh.
hand up. Mr. Stahl?
Hi. So, two things. One, it's nice to be in a meeting in person with Ms. Ganapico. She always does a great job. Thank you. And also I saw Kate Ficara on this, who's a teacher at Ashway Elementary. When I saw her name, it gives me an opportunity for a shout out. She was my daughter's teacher this year and she was outstanding. Just a fantastic teacher. So thank you. I wanted to mention her name and give accolades. So I have, if you could go back to your slide, to the slide on with the website resources, middle school science, dealing with the elements, the native folks, the medium.com and the safewater.org site references.
Where was that? It was my
Yeah,
slide
so-
deck given to the school
Yeah.
committee head?
Yes, so it's the one addressing cultural perspectives in our
I did it.
curriculum.
I did change it. I apologize. I can't speak to those. So
Okay.
if I will do that right now.
So I'll ask some questions if I can,
Sure.
so that I can ask questions and kind of share what I'm thinking about it. So,
Absolutely.
you know, I understand,
Would you like me to bring those up? I
Sure.
can.
that would maybe helpful.
I apologize.
And
I didn't know they were shared in advance and I thought we were just doing the highlights.
That's
So
okay.
I will do that now.
There's a whole conversation here about TEK, traditional ecological knowledge.
Yep.
In the science curriculum. And this was new for me. This is the first time that I've reviewed a science curriculum. So I looked through this curriculum and I had a lot of questions about what we're including and why. So I love the basic science things that are in the curriculum. They make perfect sense to me. But when I got to this point, I thought we're taking a departure and we're doing some lessons and some topics in ecological science, earth science, elements, et cetera, from a native or indigenous perspective.
I
And-
apologize for taking this away because I actually feel like I would love to speak to this
Yes.
now. Because as my points here do say that it would not change the curriculum. So I'll go back. I'm going to go back to the beginning of those slides so that we can address all of the issues that were brought to our attention. And we did do our due diligence in all the community members who
Right.
came forward.
You could go to the slide before, actually, because they're relevant, the way they connect
This
to
one
each other.
here,
That's
yep.
really my
Correct.
angle here is how these two slides connect to each other. So
Okay,
if you want to
so-
walk through them and then I'll ask my question.
A community member did come to the district with concerns over natural selection and evolution. And I had probably almost 2-hour conversation with the gentleman and we discussed at length so many different things. And as the STEM specialist, he definitely got my ear and I was excited to learn so many things about his profession and the different perspectives he had on how science is taught at our school. And we came to quite a few common thoughts, I guess you could say. And the idea was that things need to be taught in a certain way so that they are clear and that they are distinct. And as a math teacher, ambiguity is actually something I speak highly against. You never want ambiguity taught in math. The word vertical has multiple meanings and things like that. So we agreed on so much of that. And so in the sciences, I could see the parallels. The idea that natural selection and evolution are two and separate items were one of his concerns and that he felt they needed to be taught separately. And other than the fact that NGSS puts them in one category, they are taught as the standard state. That's basically how that is. The standard states that, but they are defined as two separate things. As far as evolution goes, the idea was, and always has been at Charahoe, that we're an inquiry-based science curriculum. So the idea is that multiple theories are offered, and the idea that the theory is a theory is clear, and that students are being offered any resources. At this point, being one-to-one for as many years as we've been, kids are not limited to any resources as to where they can find more of that information. So they are always led to think more critically about the world around them, and keep those ideas about the phenomena world that is rooted way back in the middle school before they get to the high school stage at this point, and know that they are doing their work based on research and experimental pieces. So always thinking about that scientific model. Now, if we move on to the idea of the TEK, I did consult, again, because of concerns from the community. I did consult with Silver Moon LaRose and Katie Kukurzian, because they are both active consultants to our district regarding Native American culture. And what we had discussed was that our science, as I just stated on the previous slide, is inquiry-based and research-based. And the idea that our students are asked to have an open mind about science and consider all possible research. And that was where the idea of not changing the curriculum came in. There was no need to put this as this very specific piece of science, because there was no need to add it as the standards don't expect us to. However, it was discussed that potentially there would be a place for it at a lesson plan level, where we would make sure that we're offering kids the correct TEK research-based ideas if those students were to want to use it, and to make sure teachers weren't opposed to students using those resources as well as an option of science research. So it was not intended to be taught distinctly. And on the next slide, where I brought this in because I was offered the reading opportunity electively. I read this book, and for me, it was a great understanding of a woman who had gone to school in America and gone through college in America and learned science as an ecologist in America, but yet had her roots in so much of this TEK she was bringing with her. And she felt the need to write a book to explain her own balance between the two, and where she found balance and where sometimes she didn't find balance, and where she needed to decide which way she would go with it. And mainly, she was able to take some of the things she learned, even in her, I think, PhD level classes, where she used experimental processes to test some of the TEK ideas and made decisions in a very scientifically correct way, but not with the bias. And that was something that was interesting. It was shared also with the AP level students as an optional read after they had taken their AP bio test. It was like after May, and it was a suggested read. And that's all. It was just an intention to open up the mind of a student who was about to graduate. Basically, many of them were about to graduate, just to give them an idea. But there was never a required lesson around this. Again, it was just something that I wanted to read to better my understanding of the whole idea. And I felt it was a good one because it was someone who had a science degree and is a poet, and it reads very well. It's actually like STEM and Susie melded together, because it's like poems about science. So just,
May I ask my question?
absolutely.
Oh, sure.
All right. So a few questions. One, was this, is there a problem across the table? Ms. Chambers, I have the floor. I didn't ask a question yet. Just have a question. One, we're talking about, was there anything added? And we're saying we didn't add to the curriculum, but I want clarification. Was this in the curriculum already, this TEK, or is this added?
None has been added. It was a discussion had, same as the discussion
But was this
had.
in the last science curriculum?
It was neither
5
in
years
the
ago?
last nor the current, or the one being proposed. None of them. TEK has never been something I knew about until about 8
Okay,
months ago.
but we're adding this to the
not.
curriculum now.
We are not.
Why
It
is
is
it in
on
our
this
slide?
slide that says it has decided that it is not needed to change the curriculum.
My understanding was that a community member brought up the concern, Susie investigated the concern and has explained why it didn't need to be added.
So you're unpacking this, you're listing the websites, and we're showing it to us, but we're saying we're not adding this curriculum.
This
But
was
we
in-
are suggesting some of the resources or books if people want them.
We want to make sure that when and if the teachers were to use, or the students were to use as we do with all library media special and all media, that we're using appropriate sources and not inappropriate sources. So we will like to do some research based. We would like to have the teachers know what are good resources in this area.
Okay, so some of you that have been to these meetings before know that I'm interested in when we cross religious or spiritual barriers. Ryan, to my right, asked a great question once, does it have a deity? Because if it has a deity, then we're talking a religion. If it doesn't, we all have interesting criteria. This, the TEK, the websites that we had listed, the book as well. I want to speak to the book really quick because
Okay.
we are recommending it.
It was a suggested.
Sure.
Yep.
So they use the term native folks that are STEM stars. As you go through, they list non-binary techies of color. The site medium.com has women and genderqueer techies emphasized. We have 7 websites and I just looked at 2 of them. The other was safewater.org, and safewater.org talks about the water spirit, and it talks about the native creation narratives and the story. So for example, I'm a Christian and a Christian pastor. I spent many years studying creation science and believe that that has merit. Well, I'm not suggesting that creation science be taught in the school, but I'm suggesting that it probably wouldn't be.
No, I feel
And
like
so,
it-
so when I just want to get this out. Let me
Yep,
get this out, and
absolutely.
then you can respond to it. So when we recommend these resources, and so here we are talking about them, looking at them and saying that we even will recommend the books or make them available, or we want to make sure that we're directing people to good sources if they have something. We are, when we do that, providing educational materials that's not in our curriculum. And yet and that's even more problematic for me. So the writing on the Braiding Sweetgrass book, their description in the website says it's every bit as mythic as it is scientific. And again, we speak to the creation story, the deities, the water spirit, the fire spirit, the gods, the religious practices. And these are the things that we're recommending. Now, what I'm saying is if we did the same thing, but recommended resources for creation science, one, if we did that across all disciplines, I would say, okay, we're making resources available across all these different areas. But if we're not, then I feel strongly that we shouldn't be recommending these resources or providing these as suggested resources if they would in fact be teaching a religion or endorsing a religion or recommending resources of a religious nature or excluding one and preferring the other. So this whole section, the TEK piece, I have a real issue with, and I understand what you're saying, that this was the process you showed us and it's not in the curriculum.
So those.
But my
those
concern now
resources
is that
were
the
what we
resources are
used.
going to be recommended, even though they're not in the curriculum. And that would be
I
very
think that is
problematic.
the misunderstanding. These resources are used to vet, to decide to not put in the curriculum. Not that these are the sites that would be expected that students would use. This is what I did on my research with Silver Moon LaRose to decide if this was the right place. And it wasn't decided that we didn't feel it was the right place.
Right.
So I think we're agreeing.
I like that decision. I do
I
agree
think
with you.
we
I
all
like
as
that decision.
adults-
What I heard was that it was recommended, this book was recommended to students, AP biology students.
As a read for AP Bio students,
So that's where I agree with you on everything that you've done with the curriculum. I completely agree. It's that issue of it being recommended as a resource, if it's not in the curriculum.
but it was not an in-class read. I just will put that back out there. Like it was not done within the class. Okay.
Catherine has a comment, and then I think we have a virtual person too. Catherine, you have the floor.
So from what I'm understanding is if you had someone who said, what is TEK? And said to a teacher, what is TEK? You could say, here's a resource. I would think similarly, if you had a child, AP Bio student said, what's creationism? Would you have a resource for them? I guess this is what I'm trying to parse out. Like, I don't feel that you're leading a child to look at this curriculum, but I also wonder if a child, very curious child like I have, says, hey, I want to learn more about this. Do you have resources that you can point them to, or do you not as a general rule?
I think at this point, we're not at the lesson plan level
Okay.
of vetting anything yet. it was actually quite difficult to get our hands on things that had been reviewed by many. And so I think there was this one, for example, that I did choose as a definition. And the only reason I chose it was because it was from a .gov site, which again, they're not all perfect either. But in the grand scheme of things, we had to pick where we would want our definition based out of. And we are working to make sure that what we do put in front of students is going to be the most appropriate. And I will consult, and I think this is an open discussion with not only the Native Americans, but everyone, making sure that we're taking into account that we are being culturally responsive, but at the same time, making sure we're only sticking to science. So one of the things that Silver Moon Rose as a consultant said is we need to bring in some of my scientist friends to make sure that we're picking the right resources. She couldn't speak to the perfect resources because she's not a scientist, and neither am I. So I think that as long as the process is being set correctly, we know that we want to put the right things in front of our students, and we will not do it in a leading type of way at all. But I do think our students in our community have TEK knowledge, TE knowledge. They know some things that are coming from their cultural background that is considered science that isn't written. So it's not that it's science that they feel doesn't exist. It was science that didn't get documented. So there is that piece, but at the same time, we will make sure we will vet resources with, I think there's going to be a great use of, personnel at URI that we're hoping that will be part of this process. So I don't think this is a finished piece. I think our curriculum is finished, but not at all our lessons. I think we, again, especially in the legislation, will be selecting new curriculum that hopefully is high quality and has a lot of that vetting done for us. But in the next few years, we'll make sure to do our best to work with the consultants that have the most knowledge in these areas.
Thank you. We have is it Mr. Spears? Okay, Cassius Spears, you have the floor, sir.
Hello, everyone. Again, Cassius Spears from Hope Valley. I just wanted to lend some information to TEK or Indigenous knowledge and just maybe address some of the questions here. First, my background, I have a bachelor's in science, and I am a USDA employee, U.S. Department of Agriculture, where regularly TEK is incorporated into our scientific studies and how we form decisions that affect everybody, all landowners, especially within Rhode Island. So TEK is not necessarily a new concept. It's actually information or a knowledge system that actually informed the creation of biology, or what we know as science today. It helps inform that. So it's kind of a misconception that TEK is a separate thing. It informs science. It is science, and it's interwoven. Science may relabel certain, rename certain practices or certain research or certain studies or certain observations, and come to certain conclusions, but those things are also found in the long-standing historical observation that is place-based and from this land, from the people that have lived here. And I just want to say that's not necessarily only to Indigenous people. It's people that have long histories of time in one place for generations that can have knowledge that can guide or instruct science and lead to research or certain conclusions. So this is TEK is incorporated into academic journals and is published. It is referenced. It is cited, and it's used regularly by the federal government and by science academics. So I think I work for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and we use this and understand this. It's written into our policy documents. So if we want to create and educate future scientists, this would be something that would be worth them understanding if they're going to have a full grasp of ecology or biology or any of the ecological sciences. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I did want to just add that I didn't want to seem like I was avoiding those topics, for not leaving them in my presentation. It was intentional just for the need of time, especially since no changes to the curriculum were made on either of those slides, not natural selection and evolution nor TEK. So it was actually still in my handwritten notes as of 10 minutes ago. I had only done it for the interest of time. And actually, you know, those questions were quite amazing in the fact that I was able to speak about them in the sense that I wanted to speak about them, but I also didn't feel like there was a need at this moment for the decision of putting forth the curriculum, as it did not change the curriculum. It was just for the conversation.
Ms. Macaruso, you have the floor.
Hi, thank you. So I intend to support the curriculum. And Susie, I want to compliment you for having these conversations and asking these questions, right? This is a really wonderful and rich example of the type of examination, right, that we want our educators to do when thinking about the curriculum and as it's presented to our students, right? And when we say we want to look at curriculum through a lens of diversity and inclusion, the work that you just presented that you did, the questions you asked, the vulnerability to lay yourself out and say, I don't understand this as much and I want to understand more. And then using content experts, as well as Indigenous experts, as well as educational experts, is exactly the work that we want to do across our curriculum. And I thank you for doing it here. Right? What we don't want is Indigenous knowledge to be presented in November, right? That's what we talk about when we talk about taking the curriculum and looking at it with a wide lens at the information that we're giving our students. When it comes to TEK, an example that I have heard in the past that I'll share is the discovery of penicillin, right? We're talking, penicillin was discovered in the 1920s. And we got the story of how penicillin was discovered. It changed humankind. Yes, true. But also, there were ways to fight infection long before that, right? That was known to the Indigenous people. So this is exactly what we're talking about. And right, you don't need a task force necessarily to say to do it, but it's helpful to know, right, that there's someone saying, yes, keep doing this, keep looking at our curriculum, our science, our reading through these other lenses and bring that to our students as well. So they hear the whole story, the importance of the discovery of penicillin, and perhaps how people treated infections before then as well in other worlds. So thank you so much for doing that and for bringing that to us. And I intend to fully support this curriculum.
Thank you, Lisa. Ready to.
There's something that's glaringly obvious for that, and it would be, what?
Would you like the podium?
Yeah,
So you can be on the
yeah.
camera?
Yeah, because you need to be. on.
Hear that.
I mean, it's just a small example of what Ms. Macaruso is saying. Yes, they do teach about penicillin, but if you start teaching small children about various different herbs that are used by the Indigenous people, is that in the right context? Because then I'm going to find my 9-year-old outside wrapping skunk weeds around his ankles. You know what I'm saying? So I keep hearing throughout this, there's these wonderful structure here in Charahoe. It's a good foundation of education, but we can't cram everything in. And we have a really good section in our curriculum about local history and Indigenous culture. And I encourage the teachers, I actually encourage, you should be doing field trips to these historical societies. There's some phenomenal information in there. I don't know why you're not doing that or teaching kids how to look things up in the library more. I know you teach them the basics of it, but let me just back up. I grew up with a mother who did genealogy. That's all she ever did. I've been in every cemetery in this area, in every library, in every historical society. I know the importance of those things. They need to be used more, but you can't cram all of this knowledge into a curriculum. We just need to give these kids a really good foundation. And I think it just started, I'm sorry, from that example. You can teach them this wonderful indigenous culture and the things they use, but it's not appropriate for children. I mean, I could see that at a senior level if somebody was getting into that field, but you got to be very careful. You can only use some roots of some plants, some leaves of others. So just for an example, when you start expanding the information you want to cram into one small curriculum, remember, give them a good foundation. That's all they need. And then they can, their minds are amazing. Let them run around town, discover this and discover that. Sorry, thank you.
So I can speak to that a little bit. I happen to also observe teachers, and that's part of my position. And I've been in 5th grade through 12th because that's my position. I haven't been observant of the K-4, but I have been in the GEMSNet trainings. And again, I emphasize that we are an inquiry-based science curriculum, and that is intentional with the idea that we teach how to do experiments, how to create your own experiment based on phenomena. And that is the big idea, K through 8. And I can say that when you do pop in, especially over Zoom, it was quite interesting this year, pop into a science classroom, even in the 5th grade class, and you can hear them discussing like little scientists, the ideas that they're learning and respectfully disagreeing with one another. I mean, it's pretty amazing. They are definitely using their academic vocabulary. They are having discourse. They are agreeing and disagreeing with each other and using reference points. I'm going to refer to the second paragraph of this article to state that I disagree with you because, and they're using those sentence starters. So again, I do think that their emphasis on how science works and how we prove things through science and not any type of history of science or any type of specific ideas in science. Again, I think the idea here was that we investigated 2 concerns that the community brought forth, and we will make sure that it gets embedded if and when it is fitting the standard. And I think that's the cleanest way to say it. And I will be the first to say if I see something in an observation that I feel is not meeting the standard, I'll probably be the first to bring that up because I think that that's my job. My job is to make sure that in the classroom we're meeting the standards. And so anything beyond that doesn't seem like it would be the right place. On the other hand, if it's a research project and the students are asked to research different fields of ecology, let's use ecology just as this example, and they are at a high school level and they do have those research skills, which we do teach very distinctly, both at the elementary, middle, and high school through the library media specialists. They learn what good research looks like, and they do have those skills going forth. Then, of course, they're going to come up to some of these ideas, and then they would have to use the process that we have taught them to prove their point or otherwise. And so I do think that that is what we look for as administration when we walk into classrooms and what we expect to see in those lesson plans.
Okay, close that discussion on the science curriculum. We'll take that to a vote. There was a motion and a second to approve and recommend approval of the current science curriculum as presented by Susie. Those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Lisa. Those opposed? Those abstaining? 2 abstentions. Any recusals? Okay, the motion passes majority. Thank you, Susie. That was,
Thank you, Susie.
thank you very much.
Chair?
Yes.
There is an anti-racist task force member that has been trying to get in. She's part of the upcoming presentation. I know Sean has been doing his best to try to re-enter, bring her back in. So before you moved on, I just wanted to take a moment to see if that tech was working. She is one of tonight's presenters.
It's not, she's not going to be.
She's not going to be, you said, okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
So do you want to move to the next item?
We'd have to vote.
Have
to
a
move.
committee to make a vote to skip it and come back and try to get her in a different way?
No, she's been trying to get in the entire time. So, and Donis and Joe will be presenting. She was just one of the presenters and wanted to be part of it. So no, we can move forward. I just wanted to give time if there was an opportunity to correct that. Thank you so much.
So the next item on the agenda is the Anti-Racism Task Force Curriculum Recommendation Update, and members of the task force are available tonight. Some are of the update. So who's coming up to be the panel? I think it's in Donis. If they could raise their hands, it'll allow our text to put them through as panelists. Who's the one? I think Heidi Fee, Joe Lopes. Oh, okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Wonderful. Hello, everyone. Oscar Kwasin, Shea, and Donna Spears in the chat. Hi, everyone. I'm in Donna Spears, and I am joined by my colleague and friend, Joseph Lopes tonight. And as mentioned before by school committee member Lisa Macaruso, that Heidi Fee is unable to join us because of tech issues, but she is really an integral part of putting together tonight's recommendations. Also, very important part of our team who is not here tonight is Jessica Avazinis, who moved mid-year to another state. And so tonight, Joe and I are honored to bring forth our recommendations from the curriculum subcommittee of the Anti-Racism Task Force. And we're so honored to be here and stay awake this long. It's really wonderful to be able to join you. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll go through our presentation. Oh, it looks like I cannot share my screen. Sean, would I be able to share my screen for the PowerPoint?
Try it now, Donis.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Okay. As I mentioned before, we are serving on the Anti-Racism Task Force, and I'll have Joe introduce himself in a few moments when he shares his slides. We start off with a quote from Wilma Mankiller, the principal chief of the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma, and she says, "Leaders are encouraged to remember 7 generations in the past and consider 7 generations in the future when making decisions that affect the people." And so we hope to embody some of that tonight here as a community. Just a reminder, since it's been a few weeks since our last subcommittee presentation, we wanted to refresh the school committee's memory and reinforce some of the core elements of the Anti-Racism Task Force. Our charge, the Charahoe School Committee approved the formation of an Anti-Racism Task Force to examine policies, practices, and curriculum through the lens of diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. And that has been our charge and our orders for working over the past few months. So there were a few, just again, to kind of reiterate things, steps that we've already taken. There were a few things that we were able to do immediately, and we wanted to review them tonight. We changed our name from the Anti-Racist Task Force to the Anti-Racism Task Force to denote the comprehensive nature of anti-racism work beyond just the individual level, but into examining the systems that we all live and work in and make community in. All of our meetings have been public, and we encourage you, if you have not, to please view them when you have an opportunity. And also we created the 3 work groups who have presented to you tonight, being the 3rd and last subcommittee. And we split into these 3 groups pretty early on. So as I mentioned before, you heard from the policy subcommittee, you heard from the practices subcommittee, and tonight you are hearing from a portion of the curriculum subcommittee. So let's get into our recommendations. And just to reiterate, these are a rough draft of final recommendations we would like to present later in the year. So this is an opportunity to answer questions from the school committee, highlight things where there needs to be maybe more context or clarification, create discussion. These are not our final recommendations, and these are really just a check-in, albeit a little bit later in the year, around some of the themes and the topics that have emerged as the most pressing to our subcommittee. And so we really want to offer these up as a point of discussion and really a working draft of recommendations. So we'll start with our first tier. And I'll remind you that we had structured these recommendations according to 3 tiers. The first tier being what the Anti-Racism Task Force would consider perhaps the most tangible, or the one that could be done in perhaps a shorter amount of time, or something that is maybe the most immediately accomplished. Immediately, kind of in quotes, air quotes. The second tier would be items that are a little bit further out. So things that would require a little bit more conversation, a little bit more planning, a little more dialogue with the community, and so on. The third tier being kind of the longer term systemic addressing of some of the issues that the Anti-Racism Task Force has articulated thus far. So we have the 3 tiers of recommendations. So I'm going to go into the first tier now, and I'll read it for you. In 2019, the Rhode Island Department of Education Educators of Color Committee was commissioned to, quote, create structural changes to eliminate disparities and uphold our core values of anti-racism, equity, diversity, inclusion, empowerment, and the health and safety of all students, families, educators, and staff, end quote. Based on this initiative, as well as data from a 2020 survey given to K-12 educators at Chariho, we recommend that the school committee craft a statement articulating Chariho's commitment to an anti-racism curriculum that is aligned with the work at the state level. We recommend this statement be located on the front page of the district website below the mission and vision. Tier 2. We recommend that the school committee support the implementation of RIDE's high quality curriculum selection and implementation, understanding culturally responsive and sustaining education curriculum review tool by the Chariho District Curriculum Planning Council for English language arts and math. We recommend that the school committee support the inclusion of Black, Indigenous, and people of color community members in partnership with the DCPC to review the CRSE curriculum review tools and recommend modifications if necessary. I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Joe.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Lopes, and thank you for welcoming me to the meeting. Before I speak to Tier 3 recommendations, I would publicly like to thank Adonis, Heidi, and Jessica. Ladies, you've poured your hearts and souls into this work, and it's been a pleasure being a member of your team. So thank you. Moving on, there are 3 major components in our Tier 3 recommendations. First, we recommend the creation of a resource center, initially a virtual space, informed by the Anti-Racism Task Force, where teachers of all grade levels and subject matter have access to 1, accurate and well-sourced curriculum support materials, 2, facilitated dialogic and collaborative discussions about implementation. I want to stop there for 1 second. While our initial recommendations for a virtual space, our subcommittee also discussed the possibility of creating a physical space at either the high school or middle school library. All that is needed is to simply carve out an area to house these resource materials. Second, we recommend using Charahoe's 5-year curriculum cycle to address racial inclusivity of South County specific place-based history by including a small team, which includes, a small team from the Anti-Racism Task Force to serve on the DCPC. And this would include parents, community members, administrators, teachers, and students. And the last component in our Tier 3 recommendations is that we recommend that DCPC use the racial equity decision-making tool released by the RIDE Learning Equity and Accelerated Pathways, otherwise known as LEAP, task force to inform continuous improvement. Before we go on to the next slide, I just want to stress to the members of the school committee that these recommendations represent the easy work. What follows is the arduous work, which I'll explain in the next slide. So, Adonis, if you can go to the next slide. So what are our next steps? Well, as Adonis mentioned earlier, the work is not done. In the coming months, the curriculum work group or the subcommittee will provide progress reports and look for your feedback. We were looking for more feedback from the school committee. In addition, the full anti-racism task force will assess the feedback provided by the school committee and will use that information to inform the creation of other formal recommendations for each work group. And finally, the anti-racism task force will provide a list of thought out recommendations to the school committee related to policy, practices, and curriculum. We started this presentation with a quote, and we would like to end it with another quote. And this one is by Silver Moon LaRose, who is the assistant director at the Tamaqua Museum. So Silver Moon says, "We can't change the past. Some of the things in the past are very hurtful. That sometimes causes people's feelings of guilt. But we don't have to let the past define our future. We have the ability to make positive changes." And that concludes our presentation. Thank you for the time. Thank you for your dedication to diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Mr. Callahan, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to make sure I understand the process that we're going to be going through. First off, thank you for the interim update. Appreciate your time this evening and for sticking with us this late. My understanding, Chair, is that our next phase in this, once the ARTF provides us formal recommendations, a subcommittee will be created. That subcommittee will then go through those formal recommendations in their normal public meetings in order to, make a decision on whether or not to move forward with them, modify them, or whatever. So tonight, this is just a pass down of, okay, thank you, that makes it clear.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else have any? Yes, Catherine, and then.
So there are no recommendations being made this evening, no proposed changes to curriculum. This is just walking us through the next steps of what they're going to do next.
Right. Correct.
I think they're looking for feedback to see if this is a direction that you'd like to continue to pursue, or they're off track, on track.
Sure. Okay. Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Stahl, and then there's two members from the community that have their hand raised.
So we've had an obvious opinion shared tonight, an obvious viewpoint shared tonight, that people oppose things that they deem critical race theory being brought into curriculum, into educational processes. Most of the things listed here would fall into that category of critical race theory. So
Please.
Every time I speak in this
I,
meeting,
I,
Chair,
I'm,
Ms.
I,
Chambers interrupts me.
I'm admonished.
We're trying
You
to
have
set a
the
very
floor.
good example for the
Yes.
community.
Yes,
I
please.
think I deserve the same respect.
Please, Mr. Stahl, continue.
Thank you. I personally oppose CRT, critical race theory, being used in the school. So for that reason, I don't think they're moving in the right direction. If they are asking for feedback, I am giving my feedback. I'm also expressing that there are a lot of folks from our community who are giving their feedback. Whether you agree with it or not, don't ask people for their feedback and not listen to it. People have given their feedback tonight. I'm giving my feedback. I don't think this is the right approach. I don't think RIDE and LEAP standards are good and that they're the right approach. I don't think we should just take what someone else is sending and assume if it comes from somewhere higher up that it's good. So that's my feedback. I respect these people very much. Some of these people are friends and their family members are friends. That's not the issue. I just disagree with this approach. And I think that's my feedback and that's the community's feedback and I want us to hear it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stahl. I didn't know if anybody were here, but yes, Donna, you have a comment?
I appreciate your calling it feedback. What we had tonight, I experienced tonight was an outburst, okay? It was more than just feedback. And I appreciate listening to the public's comment. But the critical race theory is much more complicated than what the anti-racism task force is proposing. So I really want to be very careful on not confusing those two, okay? The outbursts were based on the critical race theory, and to me, it was confusing it with the anti-racism task force, which we approve of, which is doing very critical work in studying how we can avoid racism and non-diversity and respect and empathy and everything else you want to call it in our school district. So I want to be very careful not to confuse the critical theory racism with that. That's a whole other issue that we're not dealing with through this task force.
I don't know who had their hands up. Sure.
I can't hear them.
Okay, yeah, you need to
The
go.
public
'cause-
can't hear you unless, I'm sorry, unless you go to the microphone.
I just have, Ms. Chambers, just one comment to make that about what we had here tonight. You stated that what we had here was not a conversation, but we had an outburst. I'd like it to be known and noted that there was an outburst from a couple community members. I think most have been respectful and courteous of the process here. And I don't want to be confused with sharing my concerns as somebody that showed up to create an outburst, because that's not true.
I appreciate that because you have been very respectful in your writing, in your statements here tonight, and thank you for that. But it was very intimidating this evening, so.
Well,
There was a
not,
group of people-
I've done nothing intimidating.
No, you haven't.
No, you haven't.
I have not seen anybody else here this evening
No,
that
they
is
all
still
left.
They
present,
all
do anything intimidating.
You're right, you're right.
Thank you.
It's interesting that the people that were so passionate about it.
No,
actually-
Donna, stop engaging, please. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Day, you have your hand raised.
All due respect to my committee member on my right here. What she said had nothing to do with feedback on what was presented by the anti-racism task force. It was her soapbox on criticizing people that were sitting here, and a lot of them misbehaved, yes. But it had nothing to do with the feedback, and I agree with Mr. Stahl. I have a lot of concerns about the critical race situation. And I'm trying to be open-minded about it, but I'm not going to attack other committee members here and use that as a means to turn around and criticize people that show up at a school committee meeting.
Okay, we have. Okay, I'm sorry.
All right, fine. Okay. Sorry, care to explain again from Ashway. I just would like to make some points that might be semantic nitpicking, because I would probably speak for the majority of us who showed up to oppose critical race theory, and say that what we don't oppose is teaching about multicultural topics, historical facts or events, or details that have been omitted in the past that are now coming to light. Discussion about subjects that are framed from different perspectives. I think we all welcome the initiative in expanding our teaching and exposing the students to diverse topics and reinforcing critical thinking and problem solving. That having been said, I'd like to connect the dots here that unfortunately the presentation from the task force tonight reinforced diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice, which they so helpfully defined using sources that support critical race theory. Their citations, their where they drew their definitions are based on an unproven and often debunked assertion that America and its teachings, its laws, and its citizens are inherently racist and are designed to keep down racial minorities. So what we oppose is not what you want to teach our children, because critical race theory is a method, as I mentioned before, right? So we oppose how you want to teach our children, right? By suppressing those who are more capable in the name of equity, or introducing subjects that simultaneously imply, either overtly or subconsciously, that certain races were born into some unquantifiable privilege or supremacy or oppression. We object to the implication that those immutable characteristics dictate how smart, capable, or successful a student can be. We object to the racial discrimination of any student, whether it be the bigotry of low expectations towards racial minorities or the assumption that a racial majority is inherently racist. We object to the accusation of implicit bias and cultural appropriation or the assertion that disagreement with the theories or the recommendations put forward are coming from a place of hatred or racism. And we have seen all of these intimidatory tactics wielded by other school districts in an attempt to silence anybody who opposes that. And I don't think that any of that is going to be beneficial moving forward. So I would caution that we don't make the assumption that what the Anti-Racism Task Force is proposing be completely separate from critical race theory when the definitions they use are brought forth by the same proponents of critical race theory. So.
Thank you, sir. Just one sec, we have some housekeeping to do because we're coming on to 10 o'clock.
So,
Yes, go ahead.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to waive the 10 o'clock policy
Second.
and allow us to go proceed. And I was hoping to have dinner by 10 tonight, but evidently I'm not.
Okay, second. Okay, thank you. Okay. I don't think we need a discussion on that. We'll take a vote. Now we need a majority. I think it's 2/3 majority, but do we want to extend past 10 o'clock? I agree with you,
Way to go,
Ryan.
Ryan.
I do not want to.
I don't blame you.
I see Linda and Lisa.
Yeah, Lisa and Linda's got their hands up.
So
Lisa too?
Ryan's opposed?
Oh, I'm very much opposed.
Yeah, Ryan's very much
Thank you.
opposed.
I'm tired.
I'm opposed too, but I'm hungry.
I wanted to.
I'm staying.
Just one second. I had, Lisa had her hand raised for a while.
Right, I vote aye for extending and my hand has been raised for
Yes,
feedback.
I know,
so,
I know. So I wanted you to get your voice in and then whoever, yes, we'll go. But Lisa, you have the floor.
Okay, so let me take my hand down. To pivot towards feedback, I would like us to have a conversation about, I think it was a tier 2 recommendation, the idea of having a dedicated resource space, whether virtual or physical. I think that's something as a school committee that I'd like us to consider having the anti-racism task force continue to explore, especially with Katie being part of that team and, you know, the wonder that she is with funding and grants and research. I think that's an area where I'd like to see us say, yes, continue on with that. I think that Mrs. Scannapieco's presentation as well earlier, and the integration, the importance, all the work. I think at one point, she said she spent around 6 hours or multiple hours and multiple meetings with a parent and community member, and then also with Silver Moon and with others, trying to curate, right, the exact right resources for our students. That process, right, is what we want, we support. That content and educational expert, which I talked about earlier, I would like to see the task force kind of do some of that work and see if they can't curate some of the information for our educators so they can spend more time developing the pedagogy, the lesson plan, right? That spend the time with the students, and then have resources that are pre-vetted, improved through RIDE, through all of our other multiple kind of vetting of our curriculum, right? So of course, the anti-racism task force is not going to create any curriculum whatsoever. So that's one of their recommendations that I think that we should say, yeah, keep going with that. Keep going with that, keep doing some research with that, and come back to us with something perhaps more concrete around what a virtual space would look like. And then maybe reach out to some stakeholders to see what would they need, what would we need to do to have a physical space where these resources might exist for our teachers and students as well. And then I think one of their tier 1 recommendations that I would like them to continue to flesh out for us is this idea of having a mission vision and then a diversity statement, or a statement of anti-racism. I think although it's under curriculum, I also feel that informs some of the policy and practice work that was presented to us around trying to recruit more BIPOC teachers and TAs and staff, right? If you recall, we have over 400 students identify as students of color, and we have 1 teacher and 1 TA. And we'd asked ourselves before, why, right? What do we need to do better to recruit more BIPOC staff? If more people are in the room when these decisions are being made, right, there's less need for a task force if we have people in the school, right? So I kind of feel like that does a couple things for us, right? Yes, it shows and kind of leads with anti-racism, and that's important, but it also may support our recruitment of teachers and staff that we talked about wanting to do earlier. So school committee, I'd love your thoughts on whether or not those 2 areas are something that we should ask them to do some more work on. And I'll kind of leave it there for now.
Thank you.
Well, it's not in response to what Lisa's saying, but can I just say?
Well, yeah, you have the
Yeah.
floor, but there's,
Yeah.
so there's other.
The gentleman who just spoke, can we speak afterwards? Because I think you have probably presented the most rational, logical argument of why we have to have further discussion. So I would like to speak to you afterwards. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody, John. Okay, go ahead, sir. Please go to the podium, introduce yourself, and take your 2 minutes.
I'm Scott Billhurst. I'm a member of the Town Council of Hopkinton, but I'm here in my capacity as chairman of the Republican Party of Hopkinton. We adopted a resolution, and I think that I don't think we'd be alone in adopting a resolution. We're very concerned about the teaching of the critical race theory. Personally, I'm concerned about the liberal orientation and progressive orientation in academia, as well as our media.
Sir, it's not, that's not, thank you. You're off topic.
I'm sorry,
So-
just as it relates to this, what's being presented right here.
The critical race,
No.
No,
do
sir.
you hear me?
No,
yeah,
it's
it's off topic.
What, we're talking about the critical race
No,
committee, right?
no, we're talking about the anti-racism task.
The
Okay, the
anti-racism task force.
anti-racism task force, I'm sorry.
That's
I think there's gonna be some other resolutions perhaps in the community besides the one the Hopkins Republican Town Committee recently adopted, which you have a copy and as well as a copy that was sent to the Hopkins Town
Sir,
Council.
that's still off topic.
How's it off topic?
We're just talking about the anti-racism task
Do you
force.
have
Yeah,
any
that
recommendations?
resolution, if you got a copy, specifically mentioned,
We don't have a copy.
Yes, it's in your packet.
FYI.
It's FYI, it's FYI in your packet.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, it is, okay.
No, it's
sorry.
included in our packet, FYI.
Sorry.
okay,
We just have to be careful because, I mean, you're town official, so with the OMA, with the OMA, we really need to stay on top.
as I pointed out, I'm speaking not as a member of the Hopkins Town Council. I'm chairman of the Hopkins Republican Town Committee.
Okay,
And the Hopkins Republican Town Committee recently unanimously,
we know that, sir. We have the document. in our
okay,
packet.
is that going to be on the agenda for people to speak on?
No, it's only in our for information only. It's in the consent agenda items.
Okay, what are you going to do if you get any more resolutions from other town committees?
This is
Madam
not-
Chairman, this is not on the agenda.
We've
We're
said,
trying.
we've told them that a couple of times,
We
Mr.
appreciate
Anderson.
I
your
will sit down, thank you.
Thank you very much. Don't mean to be, but you're trying to stay on topic here. Thank you. Yes, Ms. Hopkins? Oh, see? Yep. As long as you stick to the topic, please.
Well, I just have a couple of small questions about the curriculum, so I think I'm safe.
Well, as long as it relates to the anti-racism task force and specifically to the recommendation.
Yes, yes and no. I
Well, no,
guess,
it can't, it has to be yes. I'm sorry.
well, how old is our curriculum? And in comparison to adopting a new curriculum, I think that's the topic, right?
Yeah, but we're not adopting a new curriculum
Well,
at this point.
they're discussing recommendations, and the second slide clearly said to adopt a curriculum as proposed by RIDE, and I just wanted to know, how old is the current curriculum that we have?
So
Like,
my understanding, and please, the task force, correct me if I'm wrong, the
It's
way I
okay.
read it was the state law that was passed is we have until 2025 to implement a new high quality curriculum resource.
Okay,
So the ask was that by law, we're required to abide by ed reports and to select a resource that's embedded in ed report. So our team, our DCPs, they would meet just like they did for our ELA curriculum and are currently doing for the high school math for next year. They would have to select a resource that is listed on that site that was vetted through RIDE.
what
Ed
thing here?
reports.
Ed reports.
Ed reports, okay.
That's the professional development committee that RIDE outsourced to be able to meet the legislation.
Okay.
I think. the name of it.
reports.
Yeah, yeah.
So I just wanted to make you guys aware that we've looked as parents, we've looked through some of these curriculums that RIDE is putting out. And there is critical race theory embedded in all of them. The books,
You're off, I'm sorry, you're off topic. I have. to-
they're recommending I could use the quote if I bring up the picture, one of the rides. Culturally diverse.
Culturally responsive.
Thank you. Curriculums. We've looked through these. We've also have some things going on with Angelica and Fonte Green in the state
No,
besides. So my recommendation would be, if it matters, stay away from this stuff. Get a waiver.
Thank you.
Find something else, please.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Sit down. Thank you. Yes, John, who's up there? Yeah, but I want to give the school committee an opportunity to speak first. Catherine and then Ryan.
Yep, so I wanted to bring it back to
Thank you.
one of the recommendations, the tier 2 recommendation, which was it tier 2 or the book space in the library? Right? Tier 2, I think.
It's tier 3, I think.
Is that tier 3? I'm
Tier
sorry.
3.
mentioned it too, and my notes are just not.
Yeah, the Lisa was addressing.
That's tier 3, a resource center.
It's the first bullet on tier.
Thank you.
3 represents long-term.
was in tier one, please?
Sorry, I'm
Let's
getting,
just have the home page.
which one is it? I'm talking about the book space and I apologize.
In the library, yeah.
I'm hard of hearing, so when a lot of people are talking, I can't focus on anything, so I apologize. And I'm getting flustered. I would like to see a space dedicated to that in the library. You see that in places like bookstores, where if you have a child who has a specific inquiry into books of that nature, I do think that's I like that line of thinking. I think that it is a way for students who are curious about that, thank you, tier 3, to know where to go to read those books, to highlight it as we do with some other books. So I do like that recommendation. Would like to, my 2 cents, kind of move in that direction. I think that's a good place to start. And then in tier 1, when we talked about a statement on the website, of course, we have to see that statement first before it was included on the website. Is that work going to come out of the anti-racism task force as it's comprised now, or are you suggesting that there's another subcommittee formed? And if there's another subcommittee formed, how is that formed? Is that going to be formed by school committee? Is it going to be existing members of the anti-racism task force, or do you not know yet?
Sure. And Joe, please feel free to correct me if I'm misrepresenting our conversations. So yes, the anti-racism task force, because this is a predominant theme in our subcommittees, would be interested in crafting some proposed language for that, for the school committee's approval. And as Lisa mentioned, there is some overlap in intent between some of the subcommittees, the policy, practices, and curriculum. And so we are right now, based off of the conversation that we're having this evening, going to explore crafting some language with our policy and practices subcommittees for one statement that we would propose to the school committee for approval.
Okay, thank you.
Ryan, you had your hand.
Thank you, Chair. Catherine actually covered what I was going to ask. So thank you and thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stahl?
So Chair, I know it's late and you're tired. We were
I'm
cutting people off mid-sentence and saying they were off topic. So as a point of order, we might just want to let them finish a sentence and make sure that figure out what they're trying to say. No one's intentionally trying to violate OMA here. Let's let people finish a sentence and see what they're trying to say. I want to speak to tier 2 because I think this is what the last 2 people were trying to say that they couldn't say. The tier 2 recommendation is to choose one of these RIDE curriculums and adopt it, and have a group that is selected from, they said, some current task force members, as well as other people, to work with our district's curriculum group to evaluate and make adjustments if needed. What those folks were trying to say is that tier 2 recommendation of adopting one of those RIDE curriculums and having a committee or subcommittee chosen by race or gender or racial profiling would not be their ideal way to go about that tier 2 recommendation. And I would agree with that position. So I think that's what they were trying to say, the tier 2 recommendation. So again, I'm giving my feedback specifically on the tier 2 recommendation of adopting one of those curriculums. I would love to know and have more information from the superintendent in the future on, you mentioned that we're legally obligated to choose one of those that they put forward. Are there exceptions? Are there waivers? Are there possibilities? Because in other words, to choose something different than those. And what does that process look like? Because what you're hearing from me and what you were hearing from some other folks is that we don't agree with that tier 2 recommendation to adopt one of those curriculums and use what we would regard as critical race theory to form a subcommittee to evaluate them.
Thank you. Sean, you said someone was virtual? We have 3. Okay. Could you please let the first person in?
I apologize.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, my name's Laura Chapman. I have a daughter who goes to Charahoe Middle School, and I'm just going to make this really short. The only thing that I wanted to sort of give feedback on, or the thing that I noted was for the tier 3. It looks like, I know, and I'm not labeling any of this as critical race theory or anything like that, but on the tier 3 recommendations, it has recommending using the racial equity decision-making tool. And when I researched that, it seemed like there's a little bit of a conflict as far as how that would affect the curriculum and the decision-making that would either be put in the hands of the teachers, administrators, I'm not sure exactly. And perhaps there should be just a little bit more, maybe, I don't know, maybe a little bit more research into that particular tool and how these different tools that RIDE has are going to be recommended or, put in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson?
Sure. Two things. One, I wanted to respond to the question about waiver. The issue with regard to waiver, if it's a RIDE regulation, you can request a waiver from RIDE. If it is a statute from the General Assembly, you can't request a waiver from RIDE. RIDE does not have the power to waive statutes from the General Assembly. With regard to the open meeting law, the open meeting law does not turn on intent. The open meeting law turns on whether you comply or you don't comply. Given the fact that you have your attorney sitting here in this meeting, it's my responsibility to make sure that you do comply with the open meetings law.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Well, I think Adonis, let's do the people that were waiting, because I think Adonis just put her hand up.
Chair, could I just ask a really quick clarifying question of the superintendent based on John's comment?
Sure.
Because I just want to make it, it's a really quick one. and I
Yes.
just want to make a note. Can you find out which that is? So he made the distinction between the General
Statute
Assembly
and
law or RIDE. Can we parse that out so we know which we're dealing with? What we can,
I can provide both the
what
law
we
and
can
the-
ask for waivers for and what we can't is all.
Thank you.
That was helpful, John. Thank you.
Sean? Okay, Caccioli, you have the floor.
Thank you for allowing me to speak again. I know it's been a long meeting, so I'll just make it short and sweet. I do appreciate the anti-racism task force encompassing all students and suggesting, so it doesn't matter if they are a certain color, or it doesn't matter if they have a different religion, everyone's accepted. So I do like that encompassing of that. I think that would alleviate some of the concern, hopefully some of the concerns of others who do not like that, the anti-race task force. Tier 2, actually other schools in the state of Rhode Island are already implementing it. So it's nothing that hasn't been done in other districts. They just do it age appropriate to that, to the curriculum. So they encompass that, and I would hope that would be in place. And I know there's been a lot of confusion tonight, a lot of outbursts, and I just wanted to say that, I think everyone's doing an amazing job, and I thank the anti-race task force for putting the presentation together.
Thank you. Sean, who's the other person? Jessica Swain, you have your hand raised. You have the floor.
Guys, Jessica Swain again from Ashway. So if you guys can refer back to tier 3, one of the things I was looking at was that there was supposed to be a recommendation for a creation of a resource center, which I agree should be virtual at first, but if the concern is that we currently don't have space in the schools for the programs that we have, where will the space be made for this program to be implemented? We currently at the Ashway School don't have room for the art and music program. They're outside the school in a like a extra box outside the school. So how are we going to make space in the schools? But then also to ensure that this is a possibility amongst all the schools, will there then need to be a paid position to ensure that these recommendations are being followed? Because if they're not being followed in accordance with the recommendations, then they're just kind of not really, sound. So my two concerns are, is there space? And second of all, how will this be implemented in the school beyond the racism task force outside the school?
Thank you.
Thanks.
And let's have Ms. Spears speak and then we'll close this discussion.
Got one more in the public.
Oh, I'm sorry, one more. Okay, sorry. Okay, so we have Ms. Spears and then one more in the public. I'm sorry. A virtual, that's what I meant. So,
There are
oh, there's more than one?
no more.
No more. He
Oh,
said
no
one
more?
set.
Oh, Ms. Spears has her hand up? No? Okay. Ms. Spears, do you have the floor?
Yes, thank you. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for your feedback. It's been so helpful already for our subcommittee, and we'll take that into consideration as we formalize our final recommendations. And it's really wonderful to hear that there are members of the public who are just now learning about things like these decision-making tools, the specifics of RIDE. So that's really great that we could bring them forth and have a conversation about them here and shed light on some of the really great opportunities to make our curriculum better and stronger for all of our students. So I'm really, really grateful for this space. I just wanted to also point out that our subcommittee has worked tirelessly in conversation with other parents. We are parents of the community. I have 4 children, 3 of which are in the Charahoe district and 1 entering in 2 years. So my children are 4th generation Charahoe attendees. So we are also part of the community. And we also have concerns about the curriculum. So I'm really glad that we were able to have this discussion here about this. We've had conversations with the DCPC. We have had presentations from RIDE and conversations with curriculum specialists at RIDE. We've really done our due diligence in learning about the landscape of curriculum. I am a small business owner. I work in the educational sphere, but I am not a classroom teacher and I am not a curriculum specialist. I have the incredible honor of working with 2 Charahoe classroom educators during this process who were able to give us that insight into what they need in their classrooms, the challenges that they face on a day-to-day basis with their students, and providing their students a full comprehensive understanding of education. And so it's just been so satisfying and helpful for us to go through the process, to acquire new knowledge, to let it affect our decisions. It's been really important for us to learn about the landscape and take the time to do that. So I'm really glad that we were able to share some of that with some members of the community here who are not as well versed. So that's wonderful. I'm also really encouraged with all of the feedback from the school committee and the public. And I just wanted to say, thank you, everyone. It's been a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adonis. I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you.
Good. Yes, please.
So I will attempt to stay on topic as a well-versed member of the community in the OMA. I will not deviate, I promise. My first question, Chair, is probably better directed to the task force. I'm a details and specifics person, and I like to do my own research. Makes me a bit of a pain in the ass, but you kind of, for me, jumped from identifying an issue to immediately getting to a solution. And for me, if the answer is there's task force videos and there's task force materials, that's great. I'd appreciate that middle piece. If any data or specifics or rationale for how you got from the identifying the issue to the proposed recommendations, I would just love to see what's in that that middle for me. I think it's just missing a step. And if it exists at the task force level, you know, I can appreciate how subcommittees work. And if you tell me, if Lisa or Joe or Donna say, hey, the curriculum working group met and talked about it and view our YouTube video, you know, maybe that's the answer. But if there is some middle ground of material, some rationale that supports where the different recommendations come from, I'd appreciate knowing where it is and how I can get my hands on it. And then my second question is feedback on what I think is tier 2, on the process of how the task force would become integrated into the curriculum committee that the district already has. My strong preference is that the recommendations come to the school committee or in some way to the curriculum committee, but that the curriculum committee stay educators, teachers, and the way it currently is. You know, I think my understanding of how the task force was formed is that this committee made a subcommittee. There was a selection process and application process. That's a finite group of people doing a lot of work. I just don't think that committee then should get a subsection of that committee to then supplement the current curriculum committee. So if that is the recommendation, as I understand it from the slides, my preference would be to kind of keep the current curriculum development process in place the way it is, with educators and consultants or community members contributing, but kind of not picking from the current task force and supplementing the current curriculum group.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Chambers.
To Amanda's point, I think we saw a very, very good example of that here this evening when Susie got recommendations from the community and took them to heart. But she is the specialist. She's the curriculum specialist. And I think that's a good, Amanda, to your point, I think that's a good model to follow. The recommendations were made to the specialist made the decisions. Anyway,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, so thank you all for your participation. Thank you, committee members, and for all your work, as always. It's time to move on to E.
So this is ESSER 2 funding and next steps. The update, we have basically 3 overall buckets for the ESSER 2 funding, which will be focused around the curriculum materials for ELA and any learning loss programming, accelerated learning, and summer opportunities and after-school programs. The next bucket will be our technology-related items and our one-to-one computer equipment for students focus, as well as the last bucket being facilities upgrades as it relates to HVAC and COVID mitigation. Those are the 3 high-level priorities. And Ned or I could follow up with any other questions.
Do you guys have any questions with regards to the ESSER 2 funds? Thank you, Ned and Gina, for that work.
I need to- So do you need me to make an approval? No, I don't think so. Just an update.
Yeah, it's
Just
just an
wanted to make
update, just an
Wait,
update.
when I-
Check
myself
No,
just a minute.
I always highlight, we do have some
Okay.
recommended for approvals coming
Next
up.
item on the agenda is the National Grid Energy Savings Program, the lighting project. I do recommend approval for the.
Excuse me one second.
It's due July 1st. Don't you need an approval for the amount?
It just says, it just said Ned Draper will provide an
It won't hurt
update.
to get it, I think, right, just in case. So I'll recommend approval, just go back to 1 minute, recommend approval of the ESSER 2 funding as presented in the memo drafted by Ned.
So move, but why do we need to do that?
Jane recommended based on
I
past
think
practice. that we-
Typically, we've never had ESSER before, you've done it for title funding.
Well, because it's a grant and it's the
I'll second
expense
that.
of it.
Okay,
is
so,
beyond,
okay, okay, well, no, if it's recommended by the administration, then, okay, so we have a motion.
A second.
And Mr. Luzon made the motion, Ryan seconded to, I guess, accept, approve the ESSER 2 funds distribution. Does that
Well,
sound?
no,
Oh, so tell me what it is, Jane.
Approval of
This
ESSER
is 2
ESSER 2
grant
funds.
applications.
Okay,
application.
applications, thank you, okay. So any other discussion on this before we take the vote? No, those in favor? Okay, those opposed?
Nobody, no recusals and no abstentions. Yeah, those two. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
So the
sorry.
next item is National Grid Energy Savings Program. It's the lighting project. I recommend approval per the memo from Ned of the transfer of $31,690 from the administration building, Richmond CTC Middle School and High School line listed on the FY21 transfer sheet to the equipment building grounds, Hope Valley line items that we may pay the project installation bill in full and retain electricity bill savings immediately thereafter.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there was a motion and a second to accept the National Grid Energy Savings Program lighting project. Any questions or for Ned? Anybody have any questions on that? That's basically a transfer of funds. Right, Ned?
Correct.
Thank you. I guess not. Okay, take it to a vote. Those in favor to approve the transfer of funds? Thank you back there. I don't think any opposition, recusals, abstentions. That was unanimous. Okay. G,
National Grid Energy Savings Program, the Common Energy Community Solar Program. I recommend approval for the memo from Ned Draper for the district to participate in the Common Energy Community Solar Program, which could result in additional energy savings of up to 10%.
So moved.
Second.
okay, there was a motion and a second to approve the National Grid Energy Savings Program, Common Energy Community Solar Program. Any questions or? No? We just joined this and that's how it works. We become part of a community of
Right.
savers kind of thing, and we can.
The
save
upside
some-
is we could earn up to 10% savings. Downside is we don't participate and we have no access to any savings.
Okay, so.
Yeah, just so the committee understands, this is very similar to the much more advanced program you did with Kearsarge. Matter of fact, Kearsarge is one of the partners with this program.
Oh,
What it is a more global offering to the entire retail and commercial accounts. So it's limited in some commercial accounts because of capacity. But as it says, we get to sign up for it instead of getting 30% like you all had negotiated with Kearsarge, which is more direct. This is 10% and it's available to anyone.
Oh, good, thank you. Okay, we'll take that to a vote. Those in favor of this program? Thank you. Any opposition, recusals, abstentions? Nope, that was unanimous. Donna. Thank you. H,
This is the approval of the administrative assistant contract template. I recommend approval of the administrative contract template, the administrative assistant contract template, which will replace the letters of agreement.
So moved.
Second.
oh, thank you, Gary. Mr. Luzon made the motion and Gary seconded to approve the administrative assistant contract template. Any questions or discussion on this matter? No, okay, take it to a vote. Those in favor? Thank you for sticking with this, guys. Those opposed? No? Okay, that was unanimous. No recusals, no abstentions. Okay, so from the consent agenda items, what do we need pulled?
A1 and 2
And three, I think.
and 3.
And
And
3.
F.
So you have minutes. You want to pull A1, 2, and 3.
And F.
And F.
And F, personnel actions. Thank you. Anything else? Yes, Mr. Day.
I have a question on the K2.
Sure. K2.
So it's postponed.
Yeah, so we'll pull that if you have a question, sir. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just like-
No, Mr. Day had a question, so we'll pull it so we can.
I make a motion to move the remainder.
Oh, second. Okay, the motion was to remove the remainder of the consent agenda items, a second by Catherine. Those in favor? Okay. Mr. Day, is that okay? You're in favor? Okay, okay, good. No opposed, oppositions, recusals, or abstentions. I don't see any. That was unanimous. Thank you. Okay, so A1.
No, we gotta vote on that.
What?
We
We just did.
Oh, geez.
Now we're doing A1. Now we're gonna do the
I didn't make my
minutes.
own.
I'm sorry.
Did I lose something?
Well, you know.
All right, Madam Chair, I make a
Yes.
motion to approve A1 executive session minutes of May 25th, 2021. Approval of executive session minutes of May 11th, 2021. Minutes not sealed.
Gary?
Second.
Thank you. So there's a motion to approve the executive session minutes of May 25th, 2021, approval of section minutes of May 11th, 2021, minutes not sealed. Any discussion on those minutes? Any? No? Those in favor? approving the minutes? Okay, anybody opposed, abstentions? We got 2 abstentions. We have Catherine and David. Stop.
All set.
Thank you. Yep, all
Madam
set.
Chair, I make a motion to approve two regular session minutes of May 25th, 2021.
Second.
Thank you, Ryan. There was a motion and a second to approve the regular session minutes of May 25th, 2021. Any discussion on those minutes? No, good. Let's go to a vote. Those in favor? Okay, and those opposed? Abstentions? David abstained. Okay. Okay, one more minute.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve three regular session minutes of June 1st, 2021.
Second.
Okay, so there, Mr. Luzon made a motion and Mr. Callahan second to approve the regular session minutes of June 1st, 2021. Any discussion or no? Okay, those in favor of approving the minutes? And that looks like that's unanimous.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve F, personnel actions, staff updates included in FYI.
Second. Okay,
There is nothing to approve.
Well,
He just wants to make a comment, I believe, but you don't approve those anymore. Those are just FYI materials.
then how do we introduce that? And
He just wants to make
It's
a
just to
comment.
accept it. The motion's to accept the notification, not to approve it.
okay, well,
okay. So accept the notification?
okay.
No?
No,
The motion's made to accept this information. It's on our consent agenda, so we do
no,
have to
it's
approve it.
included in the FYI. You don't accept those anymore. They're already automatically approved by the superintendent. Those are the things the school committee no longer does.
So we shouldn't be pulling it then.
I thought he wanted to make a comment
I
on,
just wanted to make a comment.
that's
and-
what he wants
and
to
circle
do.
back
Just
and-
wants to make a comment on it.
All right.
Okay,
Right, but
Ryan,
the-
you have the floor. since
Yeah,
you
sorry.
put it. That's
I-
okay,
it's
that's
late.
okay.
I just
No,
really wanted to
that's
circle
fine,
back
please. We're all tired, so please, yeah.
And just take an opportunity to publicly acknowledge Jane and, you know,
Yes.
it with deepest regret, having her resignation. Charahoe is lessened. And
here
another
to hear
district
you.
is gonna gain it. And she's gonna have to watch the video.
Yes, or read it in the
Jane,
minutes.
we love you. We wish you were here. It's like you're gone already. Anyways. that's
Thank
why
you
I
for
pulled it.
doing that, Ron.
I wanted
That
to
was
just
very
say,
nice.
Diana's beautiful comments earlier, and
Mhm.
she deserves all the accolades. So I just, thank you all. So,
Thank you.
Nice
Ryan.
comment.
Yeah.
and I can't wait till she sees the video.
Repeat it when she comes back.
I'm sure.
Madam Chair,
Well, we have Mr. Day had a.
I know,
Okay,
I'm going there next.
okay, thanks.
That's why I didn't say it in the beginning.
Okay,
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve well, you didn't say one or two.
no, he said 2. He said
K2.
K2.
K1, K2, donations from Lee Wyman, Right Coast Landscape and Tree, Richmond, Rhode Island, of $1,800 worth of labor and equipment removing dead trees by the Richmond School Greenhouse.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second to, from the donation, and Mr. Day, you have the floor. You have a comment.
Yes, my question is in regard to the greenhouse.
Yes.
Where, I haven't been by in a couple of days, but where are we with that greenhouse?
It got damaged, correct?
Correct. Everything has
Yeah.
been ordered. It's just the estimated time of arrival keeps getting postponed with the COVID deliveries, but everything is on its way and once it gets here, ready to be put up, but it's not all right yet.
So we don't have a problem with the fire marshal?
Nope, he approved everything.
All right, well, I brought that to somebody's attention. I thought maybe I would have got.
Yeah,
some
we actually, I just followed up.
feedback on that, but
Yep.
I gotta ask these questions per the agenda.
I went by there today so I could make sure I
Okay.
followed up.
That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Day. Okay, so now we're on to reports. Thank you.
No, wait a minute.
No, wait a minute, what?
Gotta
Because this,
vote for it.
Oh, we have to vote for it, sorry.
this really,
Sorry.
this was off topic. It's another OMA violation.
I'm sorry.
It was just a donation.
Yeah,
We vote on the donation? No,
No.
not yet.
we didn't vote on the donation, so
But We
we're,
have to vote on it.
we have to vote to
We
accept.
haven't voted on K2.
We
Motion
have-
and second.
To accept.
We
it.
did do it, but we have to vote on K2. So let's vote to accept the donation. Those in favor? Those opposed, no opposition, no accusals, and no.
Point of order, Chair. I think that was not a violation of
It is a
OMA.
violation. It was a donation. It is not a discussion of the greenhouse. It is a violation.
The discussion though is in the context of the greenhouse, how the donation. fit
Okay,
in.
well, let's move on. We're all tired and we're all making.
Get a lawsuit. It's fine with me.
uh,
Not me. Okay, we've been there, done that. Reports.
Reports. Okay, come on, let's go to reports. Come on, guys, we're almost there.
Okay, subcommittee reports, you have in your packets, the anti-racism task force, been on June 2nd, enclosed with a draft copy of the minutes for their meeting. In my reports, the kindergarten enrollment update at Ashway, currently we're at 28. At Charlestown, we are at 44. At Hope Valley, we're at 16. And at Richmond, we are at 59. As all of you know, these will continue to go and be registered, students registered throughout the summer. So you'll get another update July 13th. Our last day of school is tomorrow. Just want to take an opportunity to recognize all the efforts of our educators, staff, school and district administrators, as well as the school committee for what I believe was a very successful school year with all the challenges that came our way during the pandemic. We were one, if not the only school district open every day, full-time, full in-person learning for any family that wanted that opportunity. And as many of you know, the school teams have worked very hard to put in things like field day at the end of the year to ensure those very favorite memories of our children are long lasting and a part of their repertoire for the end of the school year. Our high school graduation on the main campus was something that we were all very proud of. It was complimented by many, and many were grateful for everyone's efforts to make that a very successful event for our seniors. And the Chartwell community, as well as the school committee, has been extremely supportive of all of us throughout a challenging year. And we couldn't have done it without all of you. So we do appreciate all your help and support. And I'm excited to continue planning over the summer to get ready to reopen for another school year, hopefully without all the pandemic mitigation.
We hope that too.
And then it's district yard sale is coming up, as well as the last day of school being tomorrow, which I just mentioned. And next is
future agenda. Yep. So school committee request for future agenda items. Yes, Mr. Stahl.
We have a statement that was sent to us. It's in the FYI from the Republican Town Committee with a resolution against critical race theory. I have a second one from the Rhode Island Coalition for Israel on the same topic. I'd like those to be on a future agenda item.
Okay, so noted.
2 resolutions.
So the Rhode Island, for what purpose those are like?
They're both resolutions against using critical race theory. In
Yeah, I know, I
terrorist
read
groups.
them. I didn't know what the.
You haven't
discussion-
read the Rhode Island Coalition?
No, I
yet,
don't
so
have that
sent
one.
it.
I have the other one, but we all do have the other one. But
I'd like that to be on the agenda so we can discuss them.
Okay, but we can't put that on without them seeing. Do you have a copy to share with others that we can put in FYI?
the one from the Rhode Island Coalition.
Coalition?
I can share that one with you.
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
I can forward that one to you. You already have the other one.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Day.
2 things very quickly.
Yep.
A suggestion, being the situation we had earlier at the meeting, maybe Mr. Anderson could draft a letter with a short paragraph so that before we open meetings now, if we're gonna have the continuous in-person things that people fully understand what we can do and what we can't do, and if we have to cite state law or something like that, because, you know, it was very obvious that nobody in the audience really wanted to hear what we said, so maybe if it
Like an
comes
OMA, like a quick OMA guidance.
Yeah.
Okay.
The second thing is, I have a very lengthy report from GZA on the oil spill, and in the past, we've always had a representative here to fill us in what's going on. So, you know, I'm hoping that this, I've read most of this. I've lived through this oil spill since 1999. I really have. I remember when the hole was in the ground out there. So I think it behooves the rest of the committee members to know how much it's cost to date, because I think it's well over $1 million now. And a lot of people are probably not aware of that, but it would be nice to at least know what the cost is and how it's improved with GZA as opposed to Beta.
Okay, so really you're asking for a cost, but you're also asking maybe for someone to come and go through it with the school committee, like go through the report. Yes, okay.
We can do that. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Day. Yes, Mr. Stahl.
I would also like to ask for a future agenda item, the Charahoe Youth Task Force and the community tab on the website.
You mean like community resource tab?
There is a community tab with the Charahoe Youth Task Force on it.
That's the only thing on there.
It's the only thing on it, right? We moved, it was moved this week. The Charahoe Youth Task Force was moved to the community tab. So I would like to talk about the Charahoe Youth Task Force and the community tab that it's on.
I know I'm waiting. I think that.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I think it's quiet now, so I make a
Yes.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr.
Triple.
Kelly.
And I'm adjourning. We got
Third.
ours on the board.
Come on, thanks.
We're voting.
Thank you. It was unanimous. Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your patience. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Eric and Sean.